Okay, it is 6:31, so we'll go ahead and get the meeting started. Sorry about the technical difficulties to begin with. So,
Holly Anderson. Present. Goshen Merchant.
here,
Don Mayfield.
Here.
Curtis Bond.
here,
John Valencourt.
here.
George Wright.
All right. Jesus, weird. Let's go ahead and do our pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so if you've had a chance to look at the agenda, I have a few things to adjust and add. So on the agenda, let me pull it up. Since out there. So under Old City Business, we need to add item C for resolution for purchase of the second police vehicle. And item D, review of the updated organizational chart. And under new city business, I don't know if we could add it under old city business or new city business. Probably easy to add it under old city business, the opening of the bids. Let's add it to the old city business as item E. So we'll have to open the bids tonight. And then my preference would be that we move item E down below and move F up. So switch E and F, because I have not had a chance to even address the special session at all. I'd like the opportunity to speak.
No other changes, I'd recommend the motion to accept the amended agenda.
Have more, sorry.
Sorry.
Almost. So also, and I think this may have been there because there's confusion about comprehensive management plan, the comprehensive maintenance plan. We need to add comprehensive maintenance plan as part of G. So it's the comprehensive management plan and the comprehensive maintenance plan. Those are two different documents. So everybody's aware. That's it.
Does anybody else have anything? Recommend a motion to accept the amended agenda.
Second. Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any public comment before we vote? Yes. Can you? So also for tonight, just because we do have a lot of things to get through, public comment we love. Just come to the podium, state your name for the recorder treasurer so that she can get it in the record. And if you live in the city of Goshen.
I live in the city of Goshen, Bernadette Boyle, Tuttle Road. I just have a concern as far as when using the community building. A lot of times when we have our meetings, we are not able to access the convenient parking. It's kind of like reserved for the bicycles. And my interpretation of the bicycles want to exercise. So can we shove them like the next parking lot over? Because I
Yes.
got 85-year-old ladies that are trying to walk across the gravel.
I actually gotten this complaint also when people rent the community building. So we are going to need to put signage up, and we're in the middle of ordering signs. That is one of the signs we're going to have to order is that, please, if you're cycling, use the back area for parking.
It doesn't always happen, but it's always on our most important meetings. They're there.
Well,
And-
also when people rent the community building, it's really difficult when there's 20 bicyclists on the weekend and you have the building rented on a Saturday.
Yeah, and it
So-
makes no sense. They're in a handicapped spot, yet they're out bicycling. So
Thank you, Bernadette. Any other public comment before we vote? All right, all those in favor Okay. Of the agenda, amended agenda? All right, now, after the agenda has been approved, we also have time for public input. If anybody would like to speak at this time, you can come up to the podium. You have 2 minutes to speak. Okay. All right, we'll move on to approval of the minutes. Does
I
everybody
have some
changes?
changes.
Okay. You pull up the minutes.
What you have, I've got a few as well.
Yeah, on page 4. The very last sentence. Where it says, Mr. Valentine pointed out that the guest house is in the process of being annexed to the city of Goshen. But does not currently sit in the city. I didn't say that, all I said was that the guest house does not sit in the city of Goshen proper, it's still in the county.
You're talking about the section of being annexed to?
Pardon me?
You're talking about the section of being annexed to?
Yeah, I didn't say it was being annexed,
Correct. You're struggling.
okay? And then on page 7, the last sentence there as well, where it says, the mayor will likely offer Jerry Jackson the position, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. What was said was that he really didn't care what we thought. He was offering him the position the next day.
Sorry, I don't see that. Which 7?
I don't recall ever saying that in the meeting. So I disagree. I'd like to listen to the recording before you midnight.
I'm not seeing it on page 7. Am I not looking?
I don't see it on page 7.
Page 5,
Oh, 5.
the very last sentence.
I noticed, under the, first page, under the approval of minutes, it says public comment, and then it says none with a 0 instead of an N.
Yep. Okay.
And then, page 2, in the first paragraph, mechanic will put a new transmission in and a firewall. They weren't putting in a firewall, they were replacing everything in front of the firewall.
Okay.
So, that's, as I said, mechanic will replace everything in front of the firewall, engines, air conditioning, compressor, etc.
I think he did state that it already has a new transmission.
Yeah.
And that everything in front of the firewall would be replaced.
Say one more time.
So the mechanic would put in everything in front of the firewall would be replaced, engine wise,
Okay. So
and that the vehicle already has a new transmission.
already has.
And again, I would have to listen, but that's what I recall.
Yeah.
If that's what you guys recall as well.
I don't.
I do.
I don't just go and change these automatically and go back and listen. So.
I recall it the same one.
And then, it says, also Chief Travis says there's extra money available. He's asking permission to use that. The extra, let's see here. And he said, well, down at the last sentence in that paragraph says Chief Travis reiterated that 988 funds can't be used for anything other else than a new vehicle. But I don't think he said, I don't know if he said new vehicle for sure.
I think it cannot be used for
Yeah.
anything else other than vehicles.
Other than, well,
And related to vehicles. Related to police vehicles.
But not
So,
the Berkey.
not, yeah. So that's, again, just wanted to clarify that new vehicle is not the right term.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Maintenance is very.
And then, let's see here, page 4. In the second paragraph from the bottom. Here, there was a typo.
There's a parenthesis under reappointing
Yeah.
needs to come out.
Yeah. And then, Jerry is a J, right? Yeah, Jerry is a J, so that was the other one there.
Tell me the first one. Parentheses.
Yeah, reappointing a resolution, reappoint.
Yeah,
There's a-
that's the parenthesis there.
Yeah.
There's a bracket. And then, on page 6, under organization chart information. Let's see here, a little more than halfway through organizational chart. Let's see here, it's just kind of a, it says Paula Anderson and John Valancourt pointed out that that is not how she is interpreting the chart. I guess that could be, it should be a they. And are. Instead of. And that's the.
Oh,
That's the,
okay.
yeah, second paragraph there.
Okay, got it.
And that she can do a day. That's all I got.
On page 2,
Mhm.
the first vote, I voted no on that, so yes.
On the. Oh, yes. Code anyone when I could not hear anything. Sorry, last time. Back, make one of the meeting.
Here's one, thank you.
Okay,
I got it all.
come on, Curtis.
We corrected the G with the J, the yes with the no, and that's all I have.
Does anyone want to entertain a motion to approve as amended?
So moved.
Second,
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any public comment before we vote? All those in favor?
Right.
So carried. We'll move on to our financial report. Jerry, do you want to do the financial report for us?
Yes, that'd be fine. We're kind of transitioning a little bit to give you guys a little bit more information besides just the basic account balances. So I assume everybody can read that. There's no reason to kind of rehash that. We just kind of go a little deeper into that, where we are, as far as the revenue are. So we're kind of sitting at 28% right now. If we annualize that, we're looking at coming right in at target about 225,000 for the year. If we annualize that for revenue, we're still shooting for to be net neutral, to where we're shooting to basically balance out at the end of the year with not a lot of coverage. No big contingency plans that are coming up this year. We haven't had to take care of any contingencies we did make accruals for. I think the only thing that was still kind of outstanding was about the engine deal, which I kind of cautioned that we did not have that built in anywhere where we were going to pull the money from that. The building contingency, we're looking at pulling some of those funds from the CD, which I think that has occurred. Is that correct, Paula?
Yes.
And the rest of it will be used from just existing funds instead of adding to the CD balances, just drawing down the general account to our maintenance level, which is about 600 to 700,000 to pay for that building. Is that correct too? So everything else is right on target where we should be with expenses and staying budget neutral. So hopefully this new format will give you guys a little bit more into how we're thinking besides just throwing out numbers. I don't want to just sit here and read off numbers that you can look at yourself.
I think we do need to read those out loud though, so then you get in the record. So
Oh, sure.
that way everybody hears, either from home or whether it's reported again in the record.
Okay, are those included in this fund? Those
Yes.
numbers?
They are.
Okay, fine. So the general fund was actually $1,036,473. And the reason that is increase comes from the 95%. That's not a normal balance. Street fund was 288,172. The police was Act 988 was 10,717. And the farmers market fund was 4221, which is kind of a new fund that the city has taken over this year. Okay. RDOT 3,075, and then our certificate of deposits 651,413. Of that, 415,437 was transferred to the general fund, and that's why you're seeing the general fund being over $1 million. That interest was pulled from that and dumped into the general fund for the building. So any other questions for me concerning where we were kind of sitting with that going forward?
I wanted to point out something that I know that Sean had written it in. I don't know if you guys saw it, under capital expenditures at the bottom about the police vehicle, what was allocated, what was actually spent, what we are getting from the insurance on the total of the other vehicle, and what it would cost if we take that cost of their engine replacement and put that into the purchase of the new vehicle. We're only out $13,000 out of the capital expenditure for that. So I did wanted to make some comparisons with replacement, just in case the engine did go out in that vehicle. So I called McClarty Daniel and got an estimate for a total brand new engine replacement with the patrol vehicle engine. That replacement with parts and labor was $8,900, just to have as a baseline. So if for some reason that vehicle that we spent $43,000 on in 2019, the engine did go out, that's what it would cost to replace it. So,
And that would not be a big enough expense that's gonna make any difference to our budget. We could ignore that.
Make a motion to approve financial.
Second.
Well, are we talking
so
about,
the-
or is that later when you not talk about the change
that's later.
later?
Yeah. We got a motion and a second. Need public input before we vote? Okay. All those in favor? So carried. Switch back to the stuff here. All right, we'll go ahead and move to the police department report. I don't see.
Chief, it's full.
Okay.
He's walking.
There he is. I'll pull it up and it'll be ready for him. Is that?
The big.
Oh, we got the chief here.
You have the remote? If you can turn it on and find the input. It's.
Duty call.
All right, so for the month of April, we had 196 calls for service. We had 44 total charges, 3 criminal, 3 PCS PDP, 1 warrant, 30 moving violations, 1 DWI, and 64 warning citations.
Chief, thanks for adding the Jake break patrol.
You're welcome.
And then just the other question I had was this added in red, calls to dispatch, calls to city hall, total animal calls, was that just new stuff? So 3 were dispatch, 4 were city hall, total 7. Oh,
You may have to try a different plug on that TV back there to see if it'll work. Just plugging it into a different port.
Did we get resolution on the incident with one of the Goshen city residents in a police vehicle that you sent an email out on last week or a couple weeks ago?
2 weeks ago.
Oh, as far as the
accident.
What the accident was.
Well, you guys, I think we talked about it, weren't they CC'd in that?
they were, but we didn't have any. We didn't have any
Yeah,
follow-up.
so what happened was Nathan was watching a car and he backed into a driveway, and when he pulled back out, the lady didn't see his lights or something, so she pulled right up on him and he just didn't see her in that truck. He's driving the truck now, so he scraped her bumper. We had him take it to Premier Collision, and it's below our deductible, so we're just gonna pay. They didn't do any damage other than paint transfer, so they're buffing it out.
Thank you for that.
Anything else?
thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
I also wanted to just comment, there were some letters in support of our police that were also, I felt like, very heartfelt. And I think that we do owe them a lot of gratitude for the service that they provide to the city of Goshen. So I just want to offer a thank you to our entire department for the hard work that they do. Look, these are some of the letters, if you guys see them on the screen here. that we received. To the infrastructure facility management report, let me pull that up. So as you guys know, we've had a lot of inclement weather with storms, and so our guys have been pretty busy with those things. For the city park, continued mowing, general upkeep of city park. They spread mulch around the base of the trees on the south park entrance. I went and looked. I think we probably need some more mulch around them as well, so we can get some more mulch on there. Yeah, it was a truckload, but it didn't go very far. It's free with the city, Fayetteville. No, we get it. We do. And it's actually good mulch too. So yeah, they go up there on Tuesdays. So the roads repaired washed out barrier on Spring Park Lane. I actually helped them with that, with my tractor, because our tractor is really not big enough for some of that. Graded and re-leveled washed out gravel on Spring Park Lane using the box blade, unblocked 3 culverts on Goshen Tuttle Road to help prevent flooding, remove storm debris from North Sharp Lane after every rainfall. And then maintenance, inspected and cleared 2 Goshen bridges of debris and blockages. And then future projects, this says seal the wall, it's the fence, at the South Park entrance and paint the metal support poles. Continue installing the new street signs for all the streets in Goshen. Install a welcome stone at the community building, North and South Park entrances. We did get confirmation from Gibson Monument that they should have the North Park entrance stone completed by next week.
Yes.
Hopefully.
That should be ready for pickup, yeah.
Yep. And then patch potholes on city streets, and then sealed and cleaned concrete on Oxford Bend Bridge and Blue Springs Bridge. And that becomes important because after you clean and seal that concrete, that it shows up on our inspections, the bridge inspections go better, and the lifespan of the bridge lasts longer. So that's why they've been doing that. These are some of the pictures. You can see how much debris some of these roads get on them after this heavy rain. This was the washed out road on Spring Park Lane. These are the culverts that they were out in the rain and clearing. So, do a great job. All right, any questions about that?
The comment, Mayor, and I know it's not our responsibility, but can we call, RDOT, they're coming towards Goshen down Slaughter, where I just did the new overlay, there's already a pothole on the shoulder.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's right, it's gonna be coming broken, right?
I can call Rodney. Make a request.
Like this, it just not like that, but it's pretty big too.
So move on to the Goshen Fire District report.
I have a comment about the trees on the south entrance.
Please come to the podium and state your name for the record.
Eric Smith, Arbor Board. I received a call from a former Arbor Board member. I haven't seen it myself, but they said that whenever they put the mulch around the trees, it's volcanoed.
I've seen it. I'm gonna talk to
And
them about
they've got to pull it out or the bugs will get in and can kill the tree.
and they'll be there when they get that second load of mulch. I saw the same thing. I knew that was a problem. All right, Goshen Fire District report. Can you pull that up? Take a look at that. So, they've done the report a little bit different. Looks nice. Building fires 2, wood forest, woodland fires 1, medical assists again still really high 29, motor vehicle accident with injuries 1, with no injuries 1, gas leak 1, unauthorized burning 1, dispatching cancels en route 2, authorized control burning 3, smoke scare odor smoke 1, so a total of 43.
Is the, and you may not know, is unauthorized burning area burned?
I don't know if it's, I don't know the specifics of this. So it would be either a burn ban or just not notifying them that that they're burning, and then someone called it in. So
Illegal burning?
What they're
Illegal burning?
So it's not all.
unauthorized burning.
Same thing. They did anything from them burning they're not supposed to do, they didn't call it in as.
Any other public comment before we move on to the planning commission?
I
I do want to throw a shout out to those guys. 'Cause today we got a call about a possible body in a cave on the river. They brought the boat out and weren't shy about going up there with us to see if there was anything to it. So luckily there wasn't.
Yes. All right, we'll move on to planning commission. And there's no financial report on planning commission. There's no change in finances. I do have a letter that Liz Massey would like for me to read to the council and the citizens. So dated September 13th, 2025, Goshen City Council. Dear Mayor, Council, citizens, your Goshen Planning Commission is pleased to recommend for approval 3 updated ordinances regarding signage, driveways, and lighting. We welcome your thorough review tonight and in the coming weeks as you decide on these important topics for our town. This commission spent countless hours over many months considering several versions of these documents. We did our research, held healthy debate, and came up with ordinances we hope you'll find consistent with our common goals for Goshen. We are a growing community, but a close one, balancing growth with our love for the rural hills and valleys. I hope you'll see that in these recommendations. A huge thank you is due to Lacey Lawson for making all of this happen from the city's side. We could not have hosted such robust discussions, enjoyed the insight of industry and other towns' standards, or come to such well-considered ordinances without our help. It is Lacey's hard work with the leadership and support of our own mayor, Russell Stroud, that pushes us forward to the best Goshen we can be. We are proud to be a part of it. Sincerely, Liz Manchy.
I know. No, you said September 13th, just for record, it's May 13th, that's May 13th.
She has September 13th, but it is May 13th that she wrote this. So I'll correct that for her. Thank you. All right, any questions about planning commission report? I know that Lauren Shackelford had interest in being here tonight, and he wasn't sure if he'd be able to make it, but we appreciate all of their help on all of these ordinances. Building inspection report, JD, I think you're ready.
Slow to find.
This month.
Okay. During the month of April, I did, looks like 27 field inspections, pretty good variety, final inspections on homes, some slabs, pool inspections, solar inspections, some rough end inspections, so pretty good variety. I also attended a week-long conference, received 8 hours of electrical CEUs, 8 hours of heat and air, I think 16 hours, no, 8 hours of plan review, and then foam insulation and egresses on structure for basements and attics and stuff like that. 40-hour conference. And I found all my slips in the city hall. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, JD.
Yes.
The parks report. Think Danielle's ready for that?
In our April meeting, we discussed the progress of the parks and, or the projects in the parks, identifying that Designscapes has completed planting all the trees, and now they're working on the irrigation. We discussed the need to provide mulch to each tree, which we talked about moving it away. That's gonna be done. And the need to clean up the area around the trees, removing rocks to allow the better grass coverage. The RDOT TAP grant went out for bid, which we should be opening bids tonight. So that we can get this project underway. We discussed improving the water crossing area just below the spring house, using native stones as small culvert. City Hall is working on ordering new signs for all the trails in the park to be marked better for people to be able to see. We also discussed the volunteer cleanup day, which was on May 3rd, and we had several volunteers who were present on May 3rd, allowing us to clear a significant amount of debris and deadfall. A total of 6 dump trailer loads were hauled off and dumped in the dry pond behind the community building. The volunteers who were present with help to clean up were Andrew, Eden, John Irwin, Curtis Vaughn, Mike Nemo, Mayor Russell Stroud, Ivan Ivankoff, and myself. We also discussed positioning the disc golf course between the north entrance and the Story Victory after the cleanup is complete in this area. Updates on the grants. Abby and Mayor Stroud gave updates on the application for the RDOT TAP grant, which the city applied for. Again this year, which is the plan for the phase 2 to connect the phase 1 trail to the pavilion that we wanted with our RDOT grant. We also discussed was concerns brought with Ken and Mary Smith regarding some brush hogging, mowing, and stated herbicide use in the city park by city staff. It was asked if this matter had been discussed with city staff, and it had not. I provided an opinion that for issues related to work done by city staff, it should be addressed to the city hall, and that the staff, what the staff are reportedly doing the work, as well as Mayor Stroud. We as Parks Commission don't actually go out there and do the maintenance of the park. Ken felt that this was the responsibility of the Parks Commission, for which I responded by reminding Mr. Smith that the Parks Commission is an advisory commission and has no direct oversight of city employees or the work they do. I encouraged him to speak follow-up with the City Hall and Mayor Stroud, at which time Mayor Stroud invited Ken and Mary to schedule a time to meet with him at City Hall to discuss further concerns. I was unable to be at the special session. I'm a nurse. I do infusions at people's homes. I can't just ask off. People need their medicine to survive. So I cannot just ask off on a whim, but I do want to address it. In my opinion, as chairman of the Goshen Parks Commission, the mayor, as well as the city staff, have been following the comprehensive management plan and the city maintenance plan, which assign responsibilities of mowing and clearing areas of public safety. There are multiple complaints in 2024 regarding children's safety near the water, specifically concerns about snakes and the inability to see the water due to overgrown vegetation. The overgrowth include beneficial and non-beneficial weeds. Many do not help the soil retention or erosion control. The maintenance approach is supported by the Parks Commission and the Arbor Board, and the belief that no violation of the management or maintenance plan have occurred. The city maintenance staff, currently consisting of Dave and Ivan, who take care of 112 acres, 2 people, under the direct supervision are executing these plans, which with limited resources of being 2 people. The comprehensive management plan provided by Beaver Watershed Alliance is a reference tool for best practice, but cities are not obligated to follow it strictly. I have pointed out some of the comprehensive management plan. On page 16 of the comprehensive management plan, it states, dense stands of bush honeysuckle, an invasive understory shrub commonly throughout urban areas of northwest Arkansas, infest the trail sides along the Razorback Greenway. They were pointing out that this was all over northwest Arkansas. Invasive understory shrubs like these can obstruct view sheds of natural features and foster a sense of uneasy among trail users who cannot see what's around them. Removal of invasive understory shrubs from the park and routine spot treatment can improve the visibility and aesthetic appeal of trails, as well as restore ecological function. Page 29. The stream side zone would be 15 feet wide, consisting of water-loving and aggressively rooting trees and shrubs to stabilize the bank and provide shade, and should only be managed for removal of nuisance vegetation, which is what I think the city was doing. On page 32, a quick reference recommendation by the Beaver Watershed. Develop a water management plan to reduce ongoing and legacy nutrient loading into the waterways. Design access points for streams, ponds, and other points of interest, meaning you clear the area so that they can have the access points. Not the whole thing, but they can have access points. Page 41. Excessive dense or occluded forest canopies prevent sunlight from reaching the forest floors, shifting the local environmental conditions to a state no longer supporting them, while often supporting exotic invasive competitors. Maintaining healthy canopy density allows sunlight to reach the forest floor, encouraging native grasses, wildflowers, and saplings to mature to replace old trees that they die off. Maintaining a healthy canopy also increases airflow, reduces plants' susceptibility to disease. On page 45, addressing the dead trees. Leave dead trees for wildlife unless they pose a risk of falling along a trail, damaging property, or pose a risk of spreading fire across fire breaks. One more thing on page 56. Of the species that were documented in the parks, there's 207 documented. 31, or roughly 15%, are considered non-native to North America and potentially invasive. Invasive species are characterized by their ability to displace native populations, disrupt natural communities, and reduce overall ecosystem services. The invasive species should receive priority for control. I grew up in Goshen. I was here when it was mostly farmland. Basically, the only neighborhood was Travel Circle. I am the last person who wants to see this park overdeveloped or destroying natural habitats. I do, however, see a need for better access, safety, and ability to maintain invasive species, especially ones that pose a threat to the community using the park. Thank you. Any questions?
I've got one question. So at our last meeting, the council decided that we were gonna put a pause on clearing the creek. And I think whenever the volunteer came around, that's where the volunteers ended up, was in the river cutting and clearing. I'm just curious about where that communication broke down.
There was only dead debris trees that were already falling was what we removed. Nothing, no new growth, no plants, no spraying. This was dead trees that were on the ground.
No, there was chainsaws. They were being used to clear next to the river.
That were cutting the big dead logs. You can't just pick up. They were huge. You have to cut them to size.
I don't disagree with you, but the council got together and we said we just need to put a pause on that until we figure out what we're doing. So I was a little bit shocked to go down there and see everybody in the creek right after this council came and spent 3 hours of their time saying that's not what you're supposed to do. So moving forward in the future, whenever the council acts, we've got a lot of people to consider your opinion, the mayor's opinion, the public's opinion. But whenever we come together and we act, that's going to follow in the future.
I thought we were under the assumption that the dead trees could be removed. Things that were falling that were already dead could be removed.
Which I wouldn't have a problem with. It's the fact that there was chainsaws down there and it was just clear cutting anything in your way to get to those limbs.
Well, I did not see that.
I don't recall that. I recall, I think Mike specifically talked about the stuff that was dead. They'd have to cut it out to get to it, to get it out.
Maybe, I mean, we said put a pause. Don't go in the creek. Let's figure out what we're doing. Pause it.
I listened to that entire 2.5 hours. I just want to make a statement. I didn't hear anything about we're not going to go in the creek. I heard that we were able to go in there and get deadfall.
And if that's
Let me finish, please. Part of getting deadfall out, sometimes you have to cut a couple of little sprigs along where the deadfall is just to get it out. I was there that day. Curtis, you were there. I didn't see anybody cutting any kind of significant vegetation anywhere close to the creek.
I recall Mike mentioning that. And our intent was so the day could go on, since people had already volunteered, that the dead stuff could be pulled out. And they would have to, at some point, cut to get to it. It was dead. I wasn't there, I was out of town, but.
It was offered at one point, should we cancel the volunteer day? And the decision was made that we would go forward. Had it not been for that, we would have not, there wouldn't have been anything to do in the park.
There's trash all over the park. There's 100 acres to clean, and we specifically asked you not to go in the creek and clear vegetation and remove limbs, and that's right where we found you. So.
If you would have stayed to help, you would have seen that it was dead debris.
So
It
at this,
down there and it stayed there for about 15 minutes.
Yeah, but
And again,
what was said, okay, was that to pause anything by the water.
no, that is not what was stated. I can pull up the video, John. It's not what was stated. I've watched that 2 times in its entirety. What was said was we could remove deadfall. Deadfall happens to be along the creek's edge. And Colton, I'm going to respectfully disagree. You do have to sometimes take out small vegetation to get to the deadfall. Mike did ask that question in the meeting. That was one of the things you asked in that meeting. When I listened to the minutes of it, I watched it on YouTube twice. So I'm going to respectfully disagree. I think it's time for us to move on to our next item on the agenda.
I think that the council came here and we spent 3 hours debating this. And it was very clear. Stay away from the creek. If you want to pick up limbs, that's fine, but you're out there with a chainsaw chopping everything around the limbs. There's nothing there anymore. It's down to the ground.
So Colton, we have members of the council that are in disagreement with what you
We
have.
have one member.
Okay, let's go around the table. Birch, we'll start with you.
So what I recall is we talked about pausing, we talked about if the day was gonna continue, which I was a big supporter of, because people had signed up. Mike made the point, it's deadfall, we're gonna get the deadfall out, we may have to cut around that to get to it. I thought that's how we left, I don't recall anyone saying anything about, don't get in this creek, I don't recall it at all.
I recall exactly what Colton is saying. Okay, that don't cancel the cleanup. But there's plenty more to do other than cutting things around the creek and the ponds.
We also talked about spraying, we said we'd pause except for spot spraying for invasive.
It was a total pause.
It was discussion.
It was a discussion, but the final finality was a total pause, which there has been no spraying. There's been no spraying since there was a concern brought to the Parks Commission. And that was because I told our guys, don't be spraying, don't go anywhere near the creek until we get a resolution to this before any special session. Paula, do you want to state what you recall?
Because I feel so both ends of that spectrum, and I can see that there would be some some unclearness with that as to, there was a lot of discussion as to what do we clear, what do we not clear, can we remove deadfall, and, we did say, go ahead and get the deadfall. But, as to kind of how that is interpreted with, can we cut live material to get to the deadfall or not? I don't know that there was anything conclusive kind of determined as to, but we did make the vote that we did not want things cleared in the stream bank area, so.
Sean?
Sure. And again, we'd have to go back and I believe the notes you were keeping, actually.
Well, the video is out there, or
The recorded video is online.
I remember distinctly talking about some trees that needed to be taken out. And that would be allowed other than keeping from going in and essentially, taking a weed eater or clearing a path into that, but whatever was on the ground, deadfall or whatever could be cleared.
Just to be clear, there was no weed eater, there were no weed eaters used out there, weed trimmers, whatever you want to call it. Those weren't even out there.
Clearing of material to get into that deadfall.
And the only two with the chainsaw were myself and Mike. So, Colton, you made your statement.
I mean, I've made my statement. I think that
Let's let Curtis have a turn to speak. Curtis, you were there.
I'm gonna commend the small group of volunteers that were there that morning to help with 6 dump trailer loads of wood. If you look out here behind the building, I guess it's been reduced now, but we've had to pick those up off the ground, lift them into a bucket of a tractor, and then it had to go to a trailer to, come in and get dumped. But, thanks to Colton for coming out there, checking on us. He is correct. We were within the 25-foot buffer zone. But we did have to clear cut to get to the deadfall to pull that out. After Colton was there and witnessed that, we ceased doing that and we moved to the other side of the park and finished going eastbound on the north side of the trail, picking up deadwood.
I was there that day. I didn't witness this. Colton did come to me that day with his concerns, and I told him to go speak to Mike about it. So just to be in full transparency, that was what occurred. So,
And he did not speak to me at all.
okay.
You were asked to get out of the creek. I thought we ended the meeting. It was 3 hours. I viewed it as a waste of all of our time. Come down here for 3 hours and discuss what we're gonna do, and then you do the complete opposite. That's just my
So-
opinion.
so-
Maybe there was miscommunication.
I think it is. Just for clarity's sake, just so that everybody is on the record, can you come up to the podium, state your name, and 2 minutes to.
First of all, it's ridiculous. It is what it's found. So, and then, I was here for that meeting. My understanding was that I think everybody was in agreement that no spraying, no clear cutting by the city employees, but they were allowed, the volunteers were to go in and, do what they were gonna do. I don't understand this. My understanding was they could take deadfall within the 25 foot of the creek or away from the park. So,
It wasn't, getting the deadfall is not the issue. It's
Okay.
coming down there with a chainsaw, cutting down all of the vegetation around the deadfall. I don't know if it needs to be done or not, but the council did say that we need to pause the activity and figure out what we need to do. So
25 feet.
within 25 feet, is that what's right? I don't know what we're gonna end up with.
So, all right, I'm gonna stop this at this time, and we will review the YouTube video. And if it was a statement that we were not supposed to be in there, I will bring that back to the council next meeting. But other than that, I'm gonna respectfully disagree with Colton. I don't think that's what was stated in the video after I've watched it twice. If it was, I'm wrong. I'll bring it back to next meeting. Okay? But what's done is done. I would say that everything I saw was deadfall that was in anywhere close to that 25-foot buffer zone. Okay?
Sure, it's done.
All right, we're gonna move on. Councilman Martin, we're gonna move on at this time. All right, point of order, we're gonna move on. Point of order, we are gonna move on. Second,
Second.
all right. I'd like to have a roll call vote on this. Gina?
Holly Anderson,
Yes.
Colton Martin,
Yes.
Sean Mayfield,
Yes.
Curtis Vaughn,
Yes.
John Valencourt,
Yes.
Bert Wright.
No.
Okay. You have your minute.
So to help you whenever you look, there's a section in that meeting where he specifically asks, should we cancel volunteering? Because we want to bring them out there and we're like figure out the creek. And I said, no, you don't need to cancel volunteer day, but we don't need volunteers doing something that they shouldn't be doing. Just to help you whenever you watch that for your third time.
Is that all?
Yep.
All right, thank you. All right, we're gonna move on now to the next item on the agenda. So review of the master plan under old business. And you guys have had this actually for 2 months. The one that was in your packet last month was the revised version. The title at the top had not been changed. So it was the accurate version last month. It's just that it had not had the title at the top changed. So this is exactly what you had in your packets last month. We've looked at this now for several months. So
What reading are we to on this?
So,
Second reading.
yeah, ordinance is separate. This is the master plan itself.
So nothing's changed for two, nothing's changed since the last meeting other than the title.
The only
Correct.
change to the table of contents formatting, because of confusing that was. And then, they have followed that brought up the part of the charting down below that there was some lettering that was squished, we got that fixed too. But
That was all last time as well.
the only thing that changed.
Can I entertain a motion for us to adopt?
Don't just round through anything.
Oh, okay.
You know,
So next agenda item. So the Parks Master Plan ordinance, this will be the second reading.
Make a motion to, waive rules and read in title only for the second reading.
Second.
Ordinance.
Do we have a motion and a second? Any public comment before we vote? This will be a roll call vote, Gina. Roll call, yeah.
Hope Martin,
Yes.
Sean Mayfield,
yes.
Curtis Vaughn,
Yes.
John Valencourt,
Yes.
Bert Wright.
Yes, an ordinance establishing the process for adopting the master plan for parks in the city of Goshen and for amending said master plan.
Second reading is read.
Any changes into all or? Okay. That's one item. It'd be great for you all to move to approve the reading.
Approve the reading for this time.
Second reading.
So can I entertain a motion for that?
Make a motion to approve second reading.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Second by Bert Wright for approval of the reading. Any public comment before we vote? Okay, roll call vote.
Sean Mayfield,
Yes.
Curtis Vaughn,
Yes.
John Valencourt,
Yeah.
and Bert Wright.
Yes.
Okay. And next, we're gonna do the resolution for the purchase of the second vehicle. Yeah,
So move. Read the whole thing. No, just title. Just title only. Second.
so we have a motion by Bert Wright to read in title only, and second by John Valencourt. All right, all those in favor?
A resolution approving the purchase of a new patrol vehicle for the city of Goshen Police Department.
Motion to adopt.
We will. I think John's looking over it also.
Okay.
I was looking for it. Make it look like.
What was the,
So
what was the amount that we had for the last vehicle?
$59,000 for the total cost.
69? 70.
No, 70 was what was in the budget. 59 is, I think it's the same price. Is that correct, Jason?
It's a little over 59, but
So a little over.
yeah, it's a little over. Well, it's a little under 50.
Yeah,
There's a budget.
still within. Well, we're gonna have to take it out of capital. I mean, it's still budgeted. Yes.
Now, so the 20,000, what would we get from insurance on that last vehicle?
21,000 from the insurance. That's all reported on your general fund statement at the bottom of capital.
The 70 was the total amount that was budgeted for it when we got approved.
That was the new vehicle. So we budgeted for a new vehicle, which we purchased, and then we had a totaling of a vehicle that we had to replace. So from that vehicle, Kashana put a nice printout of all of the costs and expenditures of what it would come out as far as how much capital. if we use the 20,000 that we were gonna use to replace the engine, then it's gonna cost $13,000 out of our capital minus all the insurance and the 20,000 from the engine. Does that help? Okay,
Motion approved.
so we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Public comment? All right, all those in favor? All right, so carried. We'll move on to the revised organizational chart. So if you guys can look at it, you guys wanted the changes made, since chief of staff is not gonna oversee any person specifically in the city. That's been removed. And then also under chief of police, Kashana did a great job of essentially moving all those under the chief, and they all report to him and each report to each other. So I think it looks a lot better. We tried to find like any kind of like resolution of the organizational chart. There's not. So this is just us providing this to the council for review.
We had adopted when Kathy was mayor.
We couldn't find a resolution. Would it have been a?
I remember we had one and it was approved by the council and it was adopted by a resolution or ordinance. Yeah. I don't know where it is.
I've seen the organizational chart that was done, and I know, Lacey, I'm pretty sure we looked under ordinance as a resolution. Okay, maybe that's why we couldn't find it. Okay, so do we need to have a resolution to adopt it?
If this is approved, we'll need to bring it back with a resolution.
Do you guys like this? Does it look good? You want a resolution for next meeting? That's the way that the ordinance reads now. It reads that because I have to appoint and then the council has to agree.
Right, that's part of the organizational chart, that's it's a new line.
From the old organizational chart, I'd have to look at the old one, I'm not certain, so.
I just saw that last week. I was looking at stuff on from old emails.
But chief, the way I understand this, the hierarchy goes from officer to corporal to lieutenant.
Captain, sorry.
However, that's the reporting structure or
The reporting structure, so it's the mayor's at the top, I'm under him. Then it would be the captain, the lieutenant, the sergeant, the corporal.
Oh, so the lieutenant and sergeant need to be flipped?
Yeah, sergeant.
So they all direct reports to you?
Correct.
They do.
Well, if they're superior,
They're not.
like the guys would answer to Jesse, and then Jesse would answer to Doug, and then Doug would answer to me.
So we'll flip those the way that they're supposed to be with lieutenant above sergeant. And then bring this back with a resolution at next meeting. Does that sound good to you guys?
Abolish the old. The resolution that I'll draft will do that.
Is this the same one we had? Because Ricky showed me one that actually was correct with our plan.
This is what she gave me. She redid it. It says captain, sergeant, lieutenant, corporal, officer. So maybe she just didn't have those in the right spot on this version. I don't know.
is that what the screen shows as well?
So it's captain, sergeant, lieutenant, corporal, and officer.
Should be about sergeant.
Yes.
So
it should.
I'll get her to change. Yeah.
It needs to be flipped, so the lieutenant needs to be above the sergeant, and the sergeant is above the corporal. So yeah, so flip those two and it should be good.
I think that's all for the organizational chart. We'll bring that back next month. All right, we will move on to the new business. Get out of this. The bids. Oh, sorry. Old city business, we'll do bids. Sorry. So at this point, one of the recommendations that Brian and I had discussed is the building bid. One of the contractors was not able to get the bid sheet. Shauna thought she had sent it out, but it was in her outbox draft and he never got it. So he contacted me on Thursday and was like, where's the bid sheet? I thought this was, I was going to be getting this. He's actually one of the persons that came up with our CAD drawing so that we could get this out for bid. So we want that bid. And we actually talked to the person that has we only got one other bid and that person's totally fine with us waiting until next month. I think we'll wait on the shop till next month to open those bids. But as far as, to table that, but as far as, and I guess we need to make a motion to table it.
Sure.
So, I'm gonna entertain that.
Make a motion.
I'll second that. But in so doing, do we need to let them know because the metals prices could change within the next month?
Well, whatever bid that they give us, we're gonna have to go through the contract phase of it anyway.
Something to be unfair to one company over another because we're not opening bids.
I anticipate that bid will come in within the next week or two. If we want to have a special session to open it, we can, but I don't know that there's a necessity for that.
No, I think Paul was saying, and you said
This-
let them know you're waiting on it.
This gentleman was totally comfortable with waiting until next month.
Did you-
And we did explain that in writing, we have, a statement to City Hall, but I can contact this company.
I would just say, give them an opportunity if they want to resubmit.
Okay, we can reach out to them and let them know. I have their card. Okay. Okay, so I'll call them. Let them know. If they want to resubmit a bid, then they can.
Send them an email or a letter.
Okay.
That should be good.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any public comment before we table this? All right, all those in favor? All right, so we'll move on to the other bids that we have. We have the culvert bid. If you guys are ready, we'll open it. The one is from M&M Excavation, Sulphur City, Missouri. This is for $133,500. One is gonna be from Tomlinson Asphalt,
133.
133,500. That for all the culverts? Yes, that's for 14, or sorry, total of 15 culverts to be replaced. Next bid is from Tomlinson Asphalt for $183,642.
Second number. 15 culvert.
15 culverts, yeah. So, get it all for the 15 culverts. Yep. Next bid is Stewart Asphalt and Paving. Honestly, I like it, but I don't. All right, so Stewart Asphalt and Paving. $134,210. I will say that we have used the M&M Excavating before for a culvert replacement on Fire Tower, and they did a really good job. So just as a reference, I know it's the lowest bid, but sometimes lowest bids aren't always the best. But in this scenario, we've worked with this company before. So I'll let you guys make a decision.
I think the $130,000+ bids are saying that Tomlinson is really bidding high.
That's instance.
Tomlinson,
I mean, most of the time they're not, but this time, 50,000.
It's, I agree. I mean, 50,000 is a lot difference for the same scope. Is there value in taking those two remaining bids and doing reference checks?
The M&M and the sulfur or sterling, yeah, we can do that. If you guys, if you want us to do a reference check, we're already referenced on one, so they've worked for us.
But nothing on Stewart.
I don't have anything on Stewart. No, I don't know anything about Stewart asphalt paving. I can do a reference check on them.
Just a question. They're close.
They'll have to pull bond anyway, so.
And then I can go with the one we know about.
I think that, I mean, they are the lowest and we know they do a good job, so.
We had to open them tonight, but before the mayor can actually contract with them to get the work started, we've got to bring a resolution back. So if you all would like, we can bring two separate resolutions, one for each, and you all can make a decision next month at that point in time. Do your due diligence before then if you want to. Then I can bring back those and y'all pick at that time.
I mean, they're within
$1,000.
Yeah.
$1,100.
Yep.
I don't think it hurts to ask when we're talking two competitive bids.
Yeah.
My opinion.
So we'll bring both back next month with resolutions for either. And you guys can decide between now and then which one
Well,
you
you're gonna
prefer.
do a check on Stewart.
We can.
Is that what you would?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause we don't know.
Where are they based on?
Stewart Asphalt and Paving. Yeah. See, I don't.
I have a question. If the decision is made on who to like accept the bid from next month, Brian, would that essentially push the job back? Do we still have to go over the contract after we pick one? Or are we gonna be able to go through both contracts and sign the contract or accept the contract?
They need to send us a proposed contract before next meeting if possible, so we can look at it, but the mayor cannot sign a contract.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right, but there's a potential for us to be able to go through the contract as well and accept the contract next meeting too?
Sure, yeah.
That way it just doesn't prohibit process. Okay, thank you.
Online, it says they're Goodland, Missouri.
I'm not sold to it, so if we got another month before we get a contract, I mean, y'all can't do anything to them anyway.
So we can ask for contracts from both of them.
You get references for both.
References and contracts. Okay. So we'll do that. Bring it back next meeting.
Are all those based on the budget we have for them?
Yeah. So that's part of the agenda tonight is to amend the street fund budget. Essentially moving some of the money from resurfacing into the budget for this. So, and they would fit within the, yeah. So.
And the 133.5 is where they located?
They're local.
Sorry,
M&M is local.
local. They do diligence and reference checks.
Yeah, Fayetteville, Arkansas.
Go for city with them.
Okay. Anything else on that?
Yeah, you're good.
All right, now let's move on to the bids for the RDOT. This is for the RDOT trail. So the first is the Steep Creek, Greenbrier, Arkansas. Wait. And this is the project that we have $315,000 allocated for the project, by the way. 315.
Steep Creek.
It's like a water must go there.
Right, put your shin under the table.
See if I'm looking at this and I see 226,977.40 as
That's for the total.
It's a total bid amount.
Unit price on the bridge. What's it?
Gotta keep going, looks like they're still adding stuff.
Oh, 680,000.
618.
618,000.
And there's some alternatives.
Deductive alternative one. Five, but they're still way over our budget. 568,204.87.
Mayor Stroud, the deductible alternatives that you're speaking of were the picnic tables, correct?
There's deductive alternative one and deductive alternative two.
One is 4 picnic tables, 2 is 2.
Thank you.
So we're still, I mean,
Or
even if we go with the lowest, we're at 543,000. So
But that's only 2 picnic tables.
that's no picnic tables. The 540. At 540. That's 580 is 2 picnic tables. So, so that is for bid from Steve Creek. All right, next bid is from APAC Central. So their total bid with everything, with all picnic tables, is 372,967. Deductive alternative one out, it's 347,567. And with no picnic tables, it would be 322,167. So 322,167 with no picnic tables is the bid to be.
Are we talking just the picnic table?
So the picnic table includes a concrete base platform for me to sit on. They're rock picnic tables that are set in the concrete. They're fairly good size and they're native stone picnic tables. It has an yeah, so the pavement would come off of the trail to the paved area where the picnic tables would sit. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, not about ADA compliance.
Well, they're not ADA compliant, all of them, because it's not ADA compliant to go across the bridge. I mean,
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Agree.
Okay. On to the next one. So that's APAC. The next one is from NEC out of Rogers. See that. Total price for above base bid items, 331,490. And then deductive alternative one, I guess we would add 35,000.
Take it out.
Take it out.
Would you speak in the mic? I don't know if the audience can hear you.
So the total price for the above bid items would be 331,490. It does include the deductive alternatives. The deductive alternatives lay listed below. So if we wanted deductive alternative one added, then that would be an additional 35,492. And if we wanted the other 2 picnic tables for the total of 6, that would be an additional 17,746.
You're up to 390 roughly. Yeah. No. This is the total with 6 picnic tables. If you take 4 away,
Oh, you're right.
it brings it down. Subtract 35,000 from 331.
Okay.
So 331 only.
Yeah, 331
is 6 picnic tables.
picnic tables. Sorry, I didn't see those.
Yeah. And then Rogers.
Aaron Rogers, NEC.
But you guys state again what the budget, health budget we have is
315
315,000.
is what our grant is for.
Okay, so we have our phase two numbers going in front of us, because we have to submit that today. So we didn't remember if the 315 was the total project budget or if that was the grant award budget.
That's the grant award budget.
Is 315, and so that's not including the city's 20%.
No, that is including.
That is.
Okay, that's the total.
That's the total project.
Total, thank you.
Yeah, the grant award is for,
Was like 200 something.
yeah, we have to come up with, I think,
63,000.
3,000.
So of this amount of money we're talking about, the city's already on the hook for 63,000.
We don't have to budget for 2 years.
We're already in 63.
Thank you.
So this is the closest to get all the picnic tables and to keep it close to budget, so. NEC.
35 with the deductible option.
Yep,
Like you lose 4 picnic tables and you can take 35,492 off of it.
or if you lose 2 picnic tables, you can take 17,746 off.
All picnic tables reduce another 17,000.
Right.
35 plus.
But you could do deductive alternative 2 and just
Sure.
take 2 off and still get 4.
Yeah, you can get under your budget.
Yeah, we get
that
under our
gets you there.
budget. Yeah. Does that help? Okay. One more. Diamond C Construction, and they are out of Gentry.
It's 95, throw 5 in there somewhere. We put it to the low spot, now we're heading back up again.
Gentry, they get like big stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. 300. They could do it twice for that.
So on this bid, it's 397,759. And they have listed as their deductible alternative, $4,500 for deductible alternative 1, $4,500 for deductible alternative 2.
I think that's a 3 unit.
Yeah, I guess that's
So that's makes me still not good.
I bet you're that two that would kind of. In the running.
I would say NEC is the only one that is really in the.
Do we have any others to open?
That's it. That's the 4. So
It sounds like to me it's NEC minus 2 picnic tables.
yeah,
I mean,
I would
like,
agree.
but you still get.
You still get 4. Yeah.
Or better.
So, do you want to authorize us to get a contract started and bring it back with a resolution for next meeting?
I love that. I don't think the others were even close.
Why don't you guys state those numbers again? NEC for.
NEC for $331,490 minus $17,000 if we take 2 out. Made it 70,000.
So that's gonna spend like 360, which would be basically $1,000 over what we budgeted.
No.
Wait, you got it, Jerry, you can chip it in.
Pardon me?
You got it, you can chip it in.
I'll do that.
Puts us under budget. I
No,
think
it's
we're
under budget.
314,000. So we're literally right under budget. So, all right.
Got it.
I guess get a proposed contract from them.
Yeah. So we'll get a proposed contract from NEC. We'll bring it back to council next month.
The limit on the date.
I think there's a limit on them.
Make feel weird thing and compliance. Like Paul said, that's what changes fast. Sometimes they through the days, 15 days, sometimes.
Mayor, I can
Yeah,
look
they-
at it. Moving.
Yeah, if you want
It
to.
says 45 days.
Yeah, acceptance by 45 days after the road opening.
Okay.
So we have adequate time to bring it back and have a resolution for them. I mean, we'll notify them once we get, I mean, they're gonna know they've got the contract, which is 45 days to get it. All right.
Well, that would be great, guys, but we only have one last thing on our accruals and contingencies. Lear.
Yes, that would be
Yeah.
wonderful.
Here, let's see good.
Okay. Here, there's all of these. That, and these are, you know, back in their envelopes, and this is the one for we're holding. We need to send him an email. It's cards, I guess. All right. So we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is new business. Item A, ordinance adopting the sign regulations. I'll pull those up for everybody to look at in the audience. You guys should have had adequate time to look at this and review it.
Read through all.
And as Liz stated, this has gone to planning commission many times and there were many changes. And, you know, I feel like this was a really good compromise that everybody came to come up with these sign regulations. So,
But I'd like to not pass it by myself personally, just because I want to get a lot of input from other people, citizens, all that, because a lot of people don't realize that it's being worked on until it shows up here.
Input. Page 12. Section 9. Paragraph E.
Why don't y'all vote to read it and then open your discussion? Y'all can do that.
Make a motion to read in title only.
Second.
For first reading.
so a motion and a second. Any public comment before we do roll call? All right, roll call.
Yes.
Paul Martin,
Yes.
Tom Mayfield.
Yeah.
Curtis Vaughn,
Yes.
John Davenport,
Yes.
Right.
Yes. An ordinance repealing ordinance number 156 and adopting new sign regulations for the city of Goshen, Arkansas, and for other purposes. Now it's open for discussion.
Open for discussion. Kurt, you had a question about, I think it was page 12.
Page 12, section 9, paragraph E, number 4. Remove that sentence.
E4. So it's under digital signs. It says electronic signs are not allowed to change more than once per hour without variance approval. It's on page 12 under it's section 9, but it's on page 12 under
F.
under E. So E shows up on page 11, but under section E.
It's the third item down.
Yes. So number 4, electronic signs are not allowed to change more than once per hour without variance approval.
So I think a question I have, I didn't see it, I may have missed it. Does this address existing signs or just new signs?
This would be new signage. And I will tell you that there was discussion at the commission level and there was pros and cons for both. So they landed at once an hour.
Well, I'm not really talking about that. I would read that as your church is fine because it's already there.
But no, he doesn't have an electronic sign in
They
his
don't have
church.
an electronic sign.
Several years. Maybe.
That's what they wanted to do.
But for clarity, it is new signage.
Correct.
So if he swaps out his sign,
Got it.
then
Not my sign. Our sign. A community sign. For the greater good.
Hash this out. There's a variance that you asked for.
Who do we ask for the variance? Or who do you ask for the variance?
So there is a variance process that we'll be talking through tonight as well. So, I guess we've tabled that for the variance process. So there is the variance. So everybody is able to do a variance process. and it goes before the planning commission. If planning commission approves it, then it's approved. And then if anybody wants to challenge that, they can take it to the council for any variance that's offered, they can appeal. And it can be on either side for the appeal. And so that would be the process. And if you took it to the planning commission and you weren't happy with the decision the planning commission made, then you could appeal it to the council.
So if we remove number 4, we don't have to worry about the variance part of it. And there's a $200, savings there because you're charging $200 for a variance hearing.
That is correct. So.
Can I have a comment?
Yeah, for public comment, come to the podium, please. State your name.
My name is Lacey Lawson. I'm the zoning official for Goshen. The reasoning I think behind the 1 hour, the electronic signs allow for the picture to change. So the picture changing and how often it changes, there's so many variables. There's safety issues, lighting issues, things like that. So what you're asking is for either no variance or for it just to stay at one change per hour, or how often do you want it to be able to change?
His request was to remove that from the ordinance.
Correct, but if you remove that, then it says electric signs are not allowed to change more than once per hour. So if you remove that completely, they can change however often you want.
Right.
So again, what's the recommendation for how often they should change? Because the planning commission went through this numerous times about safety issues.
Now you see the predicament.
Yeah.
So you're wanting it to change
More
as
than once an hour.
do you have any backup documentation that's
Well, that's my question. Do they have any documentation?
absolutely? We did
One hour.
we did traffic studies, and there's traffic studies that were in the backup documentation. It was less than once per hour, but I couldn't tell you, I don't have that documentation, but there is safety documentation that went along with that, and they chose to increase it.
Oh, well, I would bring that to the next meeting then. And
Absolutely.
yeah, get that number because, one number, 1 hour just seems like 1 hour as opposed to, I could every 10 seconds, and what I'm trying to think of, and I think the police department's going to say the same thing. I'm looking at, it doesn't even take us 30 seconds to drive past, a sign on 45. So, an hour, it just kills the purpose of a digital sign, no matter who has it. Whereas, I'm only going to see one message if it's every 30 seconds, every 40 seconds, every 20 seconds. So, but yeah, let's get some hard numbers if we can.
All right, I think Chief Travis has a comment.
Let's put some kind of number on it because we don't want somebody coming in here, not saying you guys, but somebody coming in here that's gonna put up a digital sign that's gonna flash and cause somebody to have an epileptic seizure, and then we're working an accident.
And that was the discussion
Because
at Planning
they
Commission.
Can get crazy.
And the discussion at Planning Commission was, there was a recommendation for once every 30 seconds, so once every minute. And then there was the recommendation of, well, Fayetteville had it where you can't change it but once every 5 hours. And, other cities have it where you can change it every hour. Some cities have it where you can't change it but once a day. So there's lots of variables. I think if Lacey can bring some documentation back to present to council. Correct. We didn't want it animated or flashing was the big thing. Yeah. So if you guys want to think about a different number. Yeah.
And that's really what I'm going for is a compromise.
Okay. Any other discussion before we move on from this ordinance? We've done the first reading. Do we want to make a motion to approve the first reading? I have a motion and a second to approve the first reading. Any other public comment before we move to the next item? All right, roll call vote.
Yes.
John Murphy. Tom Mayfield, excuse me, sorry.
Yes.
Sorry, John, first.
Yes. Yes.
John Valencourt,
Yes.
first right.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, since we're tabling item B. Item C, the ordinance adopting lighting regulations. What goes up? The driveway we're tabling until,
You want to discuss it, but that one needs to go to a public meeting first. Okay.
Yeah.
Before it comes to you.
that's the only reason we're tabling it, to even public hearing. And it's the same with the variance process, because it needs to go public hearing. All right, so ordinance, repealing ordinance 107 and adopting new outdoor lighting regulations for the city of Goshen, Arkansas for other purposes. That's the ordinance we're discussing.
You want comments or a motion first?
We can do a motion to read in title only.
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
For first reading.
For first reading.
Second.
And suspend the rules?
Do we need to spend?
No, okay. Motion and a second. Any public comment before we do roll call vote? All right, roll call vote.
Yes. Colton Martin,
Yes.
Sean Mayfield,
Yes.
Bruce Vaughn,
Yes.
John Valencourt,
Yes.
first right.
Yes. An ordinance repealing ordinance number 107 and adopting new outdoor lighting regulations for the city of Goshen, Arkansas, and for other purposes.
My only comment on this one, page 5, item B, it looks like there's an exemption that's pretty broad for street lighting. I'd like to see us not just do an open exemption. Page 5.
All right. Page 5,
Page 5, it's section 7, item B.
section B, street lighting not allowed by the city board. This was actually brought up because we went to the Arkansas Dark Sky Society for guidance on this ordinance, and the planning commission actually went back to some of the things on the previously adopted ordinance with lighting before we had that input from Dark Sky. But this was one of those things that we took from their input because we don't have control over street lighting that is outside of the city's control. So in other words, if a power company or a pole company, an agency doesn't offer lighting at our Kelvin, which is 3,000 Kelvin, we can't control that. The other thing is state highways, those are guided by the Arkansas Department of Transportation. They often use 4,000 and 5,000 Kelvin, and we have no control over that either. So that's why that was put in there that way, because that is the reality that we cannot regulate that.
Do we need to have a talk about the tariff? Is the tariff kind of what?
No, I think it's just a broad exemption, because I think, like, I see that as a city, like a private driveway, a private road, like Waterford's Road. It looks like there's not gonna be any regulations in that, if we pass this.
Because it's a street not owned by the city.
Right.
But we wouldn't be receiving a tariff for that if we.
Would you explain what you mean by tariff?
So for us to have to pay for a compliant fixture in place of the fixture that's there,
It would be at the city's own cost.
it'd be our cost to replace it.
Is the
And they
city,
may charge us a tariff for putting in that
is the city
other
able
light.
to replace lights on utility, like on utility owned lighting?
I don't.
They would
I don't
probably impose some sort of fee or tariff on us if we did that. That's what I'm saying. I think that's what this is saying, based on what Dark Sky gave us as guidance.
So Brian, can you translate that into?
I'm trying to do that right now, Cole.
And again, this was wording that was
Verbiage
changed.
is-
This is from Bruce, I forget his last name, from the Arkansas Dark Sky Society, that went through the ordinance and then added and took away some things that we'd already had in there.
Were these recommendations that he?
These were this was one of the recommendations that he had, and it was part of the recommendations that the planning commission wanted to carry forward into this ordinance that wasn't previously there in that ordinance. Does that make sense? So,
Does this make sense? No.
I think it reads more as something being prohibited, they're wanting to discourage you from using something different.
I remember there being discussion about pole light and Ozark.
they don't offer anything less than 4,000
What-
lumens currently.
Were there any other circumstances that were where that
State-
would be an issue?
State highway, if they decide to put lights along Highway 45, they're not gonna be compliant with our ordinance, because those lights are only 4,000 or 5,000 Kelvin.
So does this paragraph need to be rewritten just to specifically address those scenarios?
This is
These are exemptions.
Yeah, these are exemptions.
Yeah.
I think that's what,
Colton's concern is you don't want to exempt others when we're only dealing with these two.
well, it may not be
Narrow.
those two right there.
Well, just
Now,
just a broad exemption, because whenever I read that, I thought if you're just a private individual and you're putting in like Waterford's Road, the Knowles Road,
not owned by the city, but street lights, like owned by utility or like state provided.
yeah, I would be okay with that. I just don't want to put a broad exemption out there for everybody to not follow the rules at all.
what's your recommendation, Brian, on how to word that? Or do you want to go back?
We're not only talking about street lighting.
Yeah,
Well,
Right.
that's what it says, like, street
I-
lights not
no, I
owned by the
understand.
city. So it would be Owned
Well,
by,
no, it is street lighting is what we're talking about. We're not by,
Well, we're talking about pole lights too.
oh, that's true, Paul's.
so it would be lighting owned by a utility or a state department, state or highway department.
I don't know the best way to word this. I mean, I think that,
I hear what Colton's saying though, and it makes it controversial if a POA were to put in lighting that's owned by the POA, it's not owned by the city. So now all of a sudden they don't have to, they're exempt, and that shouldn't be right.
You can hear Brian's wheels turning.
It's a private entity. I mean, if we're speaking specifically of a POA, it's a private entity.
Yeah, I mean, we can restrict it to utility companies and public entities.
And I would be okay with that.
And it's not just street lighting, any lighting.
Yeah. That essentially is what we were trying to accomplish by that.
Right.
But you guys might be in trouble.
What's that?
The police have to patrol your streets.
So I'm just trying to
They
think
invited
through, in the case of new, subdivisions going in, if that particular developer went to the utility and asked utility to provide that.
Then they would get what the utility company has, which would be 4,000 Kelvin.
Yeah, which would not be compliant.
Correct.
They would put the utilities to install what?
Polo lights.
I think that's the concern here in this particular case. You follow me?
Yeah, but I
I don't think-
don't think any new subdivisions have poles anyway.
They're all under.
They're all gonna be underground lines.
Well, I'm talking about street lighting.
Street lights.
Well, that's different. I'm talking about a utility pole light.
Well, I hear you.
but I thought this particular.
But I think what, let me just rephrase, what I'm maybe trying to say is, if they wanted those streetlights to be brighter, they went to the utility company and said, you can install these.
No,
And-
because the streetlights are owned by POA, so they're POA maintained.
Well, they're already there. They see what they be. If you get them to put them in, then they may not be. So
Whole subdivision. I've worked for an electric contracting city for 13 years.
let's limit our public comment unless you want to come to the podium. So if we want to do that, come to the podium. Let's do 2 minutes. Trying to limit the outbursts.
No, I understand. So, Lacey Lawson, zoning official, the lighting that you're talking about, when you contract the utility company to come in and put in street lighting essentially is maintained by the POA. So anytime you have a light go out, a pole gets hit by a car, the POA is gonna be responsible for fixing those, not the utility company. Streetlights aren't necessarily utility owned.
But what I think he's saying is they could be, if they contracted with the utility company to put them in and said, we'll pay you to come put these utility lights in and we'll pay the bill every month. There's no reason why they wouldn't be able to do that. I think that's his concern or his question.
Correct.
So I think because the lighting's available for street lighting, not utility lights, like even Carroll Electric right now has utility lighting that offers 3,000 Kelvin. And Ozarks Electric is actually looking at adopting utility light, like utility poles for those lights at 3,000 Kelvin. So if Ozarks Electric adopts what Carroll Electric has adopted, it would match our ordinances. So as long as the lighting is available, which it is, I think that street lighting would be able to be put in according to this lighting ordinance.
Maybe that's the avenue we need to look at is if that equipment is available at that level or below.
Well, and that's what it says is that if it's available.
Yeah.
So where compliant fixtures are not available from the relevant utility, is what it was saying.
Or cheaper. That's what it's
So, yeah.
I mean, it may become available a year from now, it could be 10 years. You know.
We could let Brian look over it and get the planning commission's input. We've got another 2 readings that.
Sure, yeah, I will. I've got hung up in mediation, so I missed this last month's meeting, but I'm assuming this was all discussed this last month.
But they turned down a lot of the recommendations from Arkansas Dark Sky because it made it a lot shorter, but it also made it a little bit more confusing because it referenced a lot of ANSI standards and things that we would have to buy code books to be able to refer to and have on hand at the city. They felt like this one that they had previously really looked at was much more clear and succinct to be able to provide to citizens for clarity. I don't have a problem with.
We'll go back and discuss it with the planning commission.
I mean, it's just that one item. I don't think that's going to be that difficult to
Should
figure out a way to make it work.
Shouldn't
Well, I don't know.
All right. Is there any other discussion about this ordinance?
I just want to say for the committee that worked on these, they did a very good job. All
Lacey did a lot of work. So did the planning commission.
Thanks, Bert, appreciate it.
I approve it. Bring.
Make a motion to approve, for the first reading.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to approve the first reading. Any public comment before we vote? Roll call vote.
Paul Anderson? Yes. Colton Martin,
Yes.
Sean Mayfield,
Yes.
Curtis Vaughn,
Yes.
John Valencourt,
Yes.
Bert Wright.
Yes.
All right. We're going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the special session follow-up by myself. So I don't even know where to begin. I think that the first place I would like to begin is that any instance where there's an item on an agenda that is heavily focused on my administration or my employees that work for me at City Hall, I would greatly appreciate you reaching out ahead of time to find out if I have availability for a meeting. That was not done. That was a very packed week for me. I had a lot of appointments and schedules that I was not able to meet. So I didn't find out about the meeting until Sunday night, that there was even going to be a meeting, and then it was on the agenda and approved for the meeting to be held Tuesday evening, which I was not available. So I feel like there's no FOIA violation. You can call me, you can ask me if I'm available, any council member. So just for clarity, it's not a problem to call me and ask me if I'm available for a meeting that's going to be heavily focused on things that go on at City Hall. So feel free to do that in the future. So, and I will do my best to try to accommodate in any way that I can. But again, please reach out to me. That being said, I want to clarify many things. I want to first say I really appreciate the passion that everybody has to see the parks maintained and that we move forward in a positive way to get things done in the park. Since I took office, I can tell you that in 2022, the parks were maintained by volunteers. They weren't maintained by city staff. And upon taking office in 2023, we started taking responsibility based on a comprehensive maintenance plan, which you guys have, and you should be able to look at. That comprehensive maintenance plan was developed by Chuck Jacobus as part of the Parks Commission, and it was also put into place with the comprehensive management plan. So those were documents that were used to help guide where the park was going to go. And it was also used to help fund or get funding from HUD when we applied for the grant. So that document was what I used to go back and look at and say, okay, what are the city responsibilities that we need to do to maintain these trails? And just for reference, this stack, this is what I've read, some of it 2 and 3 times, based on everything in the park. It is not easy. It's just me reading all this and trying to interpret and understand. I have been on the phone with multiple agencies throughout the last couple of weeks trying to follow up, make sure that, I have a good understanding of what's in all of the documents that I've reviewed and trying to assure the agencies that we want to work with them, that we want to make sure we're doing the things that are of best practice. There's a invasive species removal seminar that's being offered by Beaver Watershed Alliance. I've signed myself and both of our city employees up. Found out today after walking through the park with Danielle that she's signed up on her own, so we're all going to be there. But when we decided to follow this maintenance plan, the comprehensive maintenance plan, it includes those items that the letter that was read by Brian at the special session, all of those items are included under what I feel like is what the city's responsibilities are. Part of that cleaning up and process of, determining what is safe for the public, things that are not safe for the public. Poison hemlock is a poison plant at every level. It is poisonous at the leaves, at the roots, at the stem, the seeds. If it's ingested, it can kill someone. I've seen these patients in the emergency department, respiratory distress, respiratory arrest, seizures, loss of motor control. So it works on our nicotinic receptors in our body, acetylcholine. These are things that they're lethal. Once that plant gets to a stage where it's actually large and dry, those seed pods become aerosolized, and that can be breathed in by anybody that's in the park. So there is a concern there that I have that we need to take care of those specific vegetation that's going to be dangerous to our public. I also have concerns about falling limbs from dead trees that are where people are going to be walking. I understand the environmental review of trying not to manage trees at any time, in the middle of the period where bats could be in the park. But at the same time, I don't want somebody walking under a tree and having a limb or a whole tree fall on them. I think that's, we have to use some common sense and judgment and say that is the public safety factor that is outlined in our maintenance plan. So yes, we've got multiple complaints in 2024 about the vegetation being overgrown. We have a thick ironweed population along the stream. Ironweed is not a particularly good soil retentive vegetation to have along the stream. So ironweed has very shallow roots, doesn't have roots that send out runners. We have significant erosion. I've got an hour of video of all of the erosion. I've walked that entire stream, all the way from where we own the property to where we don't own the property. There's an area where there's 10 feet of erosion that as it comes around a corner and makes the turn, where there's not anything being done to prevent this erosion. And my plan was that we would look at these areas where there's significant erosion and have a plan to come up with to be able to prevent that. One of those things is planting native shrubs that would have vegetation that sends out running roots to hold the soil together. And then back from that, planting trees that have roots that are more fibrous, weeping willows, things that are going to hold the soil better. And then back from that, plant even larger trees. And then identify those trees that are beneficial and stake those so that nobody makes the mistake of accidentally mowing over it or weed eating too close for it. I think we do need to stake those. We have seeds that have already been ordered that have not been planted because I didn't want to go ahead and do that without a council approval, that are native grasses, native seeds that will grow along these shores that will retain soil and prevent erosion. Erosion is what I have looked at in our comprehensive management plan and our maintenance plan that I feel like is something that we've not even addressed at any level. I thought we were trying to address that by cleaning up an area that we had multiple complaints, downfall and dead wood that need to be removed that you could not see without cleaning it up. In my opinion, I don't feel like we did anything that was damaging to the area because our plan was to go back in and repair that area with native plants and native seeds, native grasses, plant trees. So that is the plan. I have not moved forward with that. As soon as there was a complaint that was issued at the park commission about what we had done as far as the mowing and some of the spraying of the hemlock, then immediately I told our staff, look, we're not going to do anything else until we have a resolve to this. So holding off what was recommended by the council at the meeting, I had no problem with that. I thought that was appropriate till we could all get back and talk about what the plan would be for the future. So I think we still need to look at our comprehensive management plan, not as you can't do anything but exactly detailed what is in that comprehensive management plan. It is a guide. According to Becky Rourke, who I spoke to that helped develop this plan, this is a tool for us to use as a city to be in doing best practices. She said that we are far above many other cities in what we're already doing to try to do this management plan. So I think that I don't want hurt feelings. I want people to be on board. I do not feel like Ken and Mary were very straightforward at just coming to the office and speaking to our staff or me and asking questions. I feel like that could have been easily addressed, coming to the city hall, looking and seeing what we do on a regular basis. I know that in the meeting that I watched, Paula had questions about how are our employees trained? What precautions do we have? From my start of my administration, I asked Dave, because Dave is the only one that was employed at the time, what do you use for your precautions when you spray glyphosate? He didn't have any. So we got rubber gloves, we got rubber boots, we've got signs up now of all the precautions that need to be taken. Our chemicals have always been stored separately from anything else. And we got them enrolled in a class as soon as we could. Unfortunately, they were enrolled in the wrong class. They got training in March of last year. That training, they went to Fort Smith, took the training. We thought they were certified. We were just waiting on the state to get their certification back to us. We called the state and said, why have we not gotten their certification? What is it we need to do? We were told they took the wrong class. So even though they got the training, they went through the course, they weren't able to get their certification because they needed to go back and take a different class. There was some confusion at the state level when we spoke to the state plant board about what class they needed to take. So finally, we got that clarified. We got them enrolled in their courses. They've done their studies. They've taken all of their tests. At this point, we're only waiting on the final test that they took to get their results back. That should be it. They should get their certification within the next week or two, I would say. So, but from the beginning, we have offered training to the staff. I've offered personal training because I'm certified as an applicator on things to, look for. Dave and I have discussed that we do not spray remedy or 2,4-D anywhere close to water sources because it can be affecting on fish and aquatic life. It is still listed under the plant board book as an aquatic herbicide, but we don't use that because of the fear that it could impact our environment and the ecosystem. Glyphosate is the treatment of choice for anything close to water. And that's what's been used anywhere around a water source, is glyphosate. So, and glyphosate is Roundup for those that don't know. And I watched the video and I know that there's a lot of concerns about any herbicide. I want to point out that we have a mowing contract with people that mow the park. And the people that mow the park in our mowing contract are allowed to use herbicides for control of invasive species, which there has been many because there's lots of thistles that were in the fields. Those fields don't have thistles in them. Now, I sent out an email. Hay mowing. Yes, hay mowing. Yes, mowing for hay. And that hay mowing contract allows for herbicide use. Now, there's no thistles in the field, and I sent out an email requesting to see, their plant board logs for the spray that they've used, because I don't know what they've used. But something has had to have been used because there's no thistles in the fields. And back to Paula's question, how do we notify people if we're going to be spraying in the park? We put up a sign. If they're going to be spraying, you have to have something that tells people not to be in that area. So a lot of times we're not spraying in areas where people are going to be. The only spraying of things that were done with 2,4-D or remedy were done not even close to the water. Most of it was multifloral rose because that was a big invasive that we were trying to target. The other was the tree of heaven that was up in one corner, not close to water at all either. And then glyphosate was used anywhere around where there's a water supply. And you can do different treatments, and that's why we're trying to get more education and trying to learn more from this opportunity on the 30th of May that we're all going to be attending on the removal of invasive species. We want to do best practices. We're not here to try to damage or destroy any of our ecosystem in the park. That is not the goal. We felt like we were doing our best, and I can tell you that with the 2 employees that the city has, I feel like they do a tremendous job maintaining 111 acres of park property and mowing. It's not easy. And trying to make sure everything's done perfectly, where everybody's happy, it's really difficult. I also want to address the fact that there was a document on March 17th that was a document that was referenced, I think, by Ken as a new maintenance plan. It is not a maintenance plan. So that was a AI recording from a Plod device that I use so that I don't miss things when I have meetings with employees or when I have meetings with park staff. Danielle and I had a walk through the park today. I had an AI recording of it as well. And that was just, that's the document that ends up getting generated from this AI device. That's what this is. This is today's meeting with Danielle. This is not this is the maintenance plan. The maintenance plan is the comprehensive maintenance plan that we follow. And that's what we've always followed. Our guys at the city know that we have a comprehensive management plan and a comprehensive maintenance plan, and those are the 2 documents we use to guide our practice in the park. So I think that for clarity, I think there needs to be a little bit, of understanding of how we're trying to approach our care of the park and why we feel like that's important and where we want to go with it. Yes, we do want to go in and we want to plant native plants that are going to retain soil and prevent erosion. Yes, we want to go in and we want to seed some grass seeds that are native grasses to help retain soil and prevent erosion. We do want to eradicate some of the ironweed that's in there so that 2 reasons. One, ironweed's not good for retaining soil, and ironweed's not good for, being able to have a view of the stream. So we also want to go in and plant pollinating, vegetation. So some of the things that we don't have really any significant milkweed in the park. We want to plant some of that so that we have better pollinators for butterflies. So, and I've reached out to the Pollinator Society and the person that did all of our recommendations for, removal of some of that with burning and the replanting. She's totally on board with continuing to help with that in the future, but we can only do so much at any given time. And I think, like Danielle said, if there's a city staff issue and it's something that the city staff has done, please bring that to the city staff or myself and let us know, and we can address it. So, any other questions you guys have as council?
I think just for clarity, Mayor, I don't know, or I thought I recalled Colt saying he reached out about me. That's incorrect, and I may be wrong.
I'm sorry, what was that?
My understanding was Colt said he reached out about the special meeting.
No one reached out to me. I found out from Gina through a text message that she had been sent an email from Colton. I was not included on it. And that the meeting was being, I believe the email read, schedule the meeting for Tuesday. We have these members who have already confirmed that they're available. That was it.
And how the meeting was, what I was led to believe, we needed to have a meeting that week due to the volunteer day on that Saturday, based on what the perception was, what that was gonna happen. That was the immediate need and why we had to have it that week. That's what was related to me.
That was cool. That's what I got.
So anybody could have reached out and said, what's the plan for the cleanup? I could have said it's all deadfall. I mean, that was the whole plan from the beginning. We've got to remove all the deadfall so that we could, the plan was to help to develop the disc golf. That was something that was discussed at Parks Commission, and we wanted to get rid of the dead debris that was along the creek side all the way down to the Strawberry Tree, which there was 6. It was a lot. It was a lot of deadfall.
I understand. Just to be clear, my understanding was we had to meet that week in order to address having the cleanup day due to spraying or due to whatever was gonna happen that day.
Yeah, and to your point, I did reach out Monday. Rescheduled to any other night.
After the meeting was already scheduled, he did send me a text message and say, do you have any other availability? I didn't that week. So. Any other council comment?
In regards to the spraying and the comments that I made, we as a city need to be an example as to what needs to be done right and how to do things, and that we are doing things correctly and by the law. And if we do not have the appropriate certification, we don't need to be spraying. I mean,
So I'm just gonna make a statement. How long have you been on the council? Okay. So we had a gentleman that was employed by the city that had no training and no protective gear for spraying glyphosate and had been doing it the entire time he'd been hired. You were on the council. You didn't ever make that a point then. I mean, I understand your point now, and I agree with you. I don't disagree. And I think that if I'd have thought for 1 minute that they, weren't going to get their certification, they wouldn't have been spraying anything. But they did get the training. They didn't have the certification, but they did have the training. And that is on me. And that is my fault. And I apologize for that. I don't disagree with you there. And the reason that I didn't just want them spraying glyphosate on everything is because it kills everything. It kills the grass. That further degrades the soil. So that was the concern I had. And the other concern is poison hemlock. My neighbor's son was in the ER with it. This is, it looks like a carrot. It's got a biannual growing phase. The small phase looks like a carrot. And if you actually get the root out, it looks like a white carrot. And kids think that they can just eat it. And then they can die. And I don't want that to happen to any of our kids in Goshen. My issue is I want to protect our citizens. Dead tree falling down, poison hemlock where people are frequenting, that for me is a problem. So I do apologize. You're all right. Our guys need to be certified. Hopefully by next week they will. So.
Will the city have a permit to buy the chemical?
Do you have if we'll open it up to public comment in just a minute. Any other comment from city council? All right. So we can have public comment. If you want to come to the mic, state your name. And you'll have 1 minute.
Does the city have a permit right now to buy the chemical for the city of Goshen?
We do not right now. But the only chemical that needs a permit is the 2,4-D. Every other chemical that's at City Hall does not require a permit. Just to be clear. So. Next item on the agenda would be the
Variance.
no.
Herbicide use.
Oh, this is Ken's time to come up. So, yep. All right.
Are we skipping D?
Skipping D. Oh yeah. So we've tabled item D.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
My name is Ken Smith, and first have a short statement to the mayor, city council members, and our residents. Let me just start off with saying, I think we've made a lot of progress in the last 2 weeks. And I want to thank the council for its special session last week. I want to thank the mayor for his comments tonight about the control of invasives, protecting streamside vegetation, and other positive things you said tonight. I really appreciate that. So let's celebrate one moment. We have made a lot of progress. And let's not forget that. We've made a lot of progress for the last few years with development of parks. We started off just a few years ago with no parks. And Chuck, Adam Weeks, and I were charged as the first members of the Parks Commission to try to bring something to the council. We worked really, really hard. I was supposed to be secretary. I ended up as chairman after the first meeting. And so for the next 4 years, that's what I labored at. And Chuck, Adam, and I put hundreds of hours into this work. And so we got a beautiful playground out behind us. We have a 111-acre park. We have a beautiful parking area. All of that came about due to hard work, community surveys. We did 3 or 4 community surveys that said, without a doubt, that the community wanted an area to walk, a walking park. And that's what we went for. And that's why we have the trails that we have there now, why we have 2 to 3 miles of trail. There are other things they wanted, and hopefully we'll be able to work those into the park system as time and money becomes available. So rather than focus on the progress we've made in the last 2 weeks, and bringing up again the removal, the decimation of streamside vegetation along Mill Branch and the spraying of herbicides, I'd like to talk about the need to update the Beaver Watersheds Comprehensive Management Plan. And Mayor, this is another thing I want to congratulate for your embracing of that document. That's what I've been asking for the last 2 years, is that we embrace this document and its recommendations for how we go about managing the park and how we go about understanding the park. And as you remember, Mayor Poy requested the Alliance to prepare this management plan that would come up with best practices. I mean, it was a specific request. The Alliance used the Walton Family Foundation grant to prepare the plan for the city. And I want you to know again the amount of effort that went into this. Maybe I'm being redundant, but I think it's important to be redundant at certain times. We had dozens of volunteer naturalists. We had the Beaver Watershed Alliance. We had the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission. We had the Arkansas Forestry Commission. We had the Arkansas Archaeological Society. We had the University of Arkansas. All of these people provided their time and effort, assisted, and provided information that went into that plan that we have been discussing tonight. I want to make this point again that I made at last week's special council meeting, that that plan was foundational to the preparation environmental review required by HUD that led to the $880,000 grant. The ER, the environmental review, could not have been done without that information. I'm just here to tell you. You see a lot of those documents that Mayor Stroud referenced there. I bet I wrote probably 2/3 to 3/4 of those. And that's just only actually a fraction of the information that went into the report. But I bet I've authored a huge portion of those documents there for that environmental review. Now, I want to tell you why the Beaver Watershed Plan needs to be revised. It needs to include the management and mitigation requirements made in that HUD environmental review. I'll give you a few examples. The status determinations for 10 endangered, threatened, and candidate species by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, each determination was positive as far as our desire for the park. It was no effect, there would not be a harmful effect to that species or not likely to adversely affect. That was good news. That kept us out of a lot of trouble by achieving those determinations. Those are actually in letters from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. That took a lot of effort on all the part of myself and all the people who helped me in doing, because I had to do the biological assessment. But in those biological assessments, the service requires that species protection measures for 3 endangered bat species be included in the park management plan. And I've got that attachment here. See attachment 1. For 4 species, the tricolored bat, I know you guys, this is all Greek or Latin or Chinese to some of you, Mandarin, understand that, but it's a very important species. It's a candidate species for listing. And the conservation needs are, and I'm going to quote this right out of the biological assessment, to maintain forested stream corridors bordering Mill Branch, to improve tree health in forested ravines within Mill Branch Park, to remove invasive trees, to maintain dead trees, and only to remove dead trees that pose, to the mayor's point, that pose health risks to public, and to remove those trees during winter months. That's right out of the biological assessment. That was attachment 2. For another bat, a filth bat, the city in our documents said the city of Goshen and its Parks and Recreation Commission will follow federal guidelines and work those guidelines into park management plans. I'm going to talk about another species for a moment. The biological assessment for the monarch butterfly, another candidate for listing. We all know about monarchs. Is there anyone here that knows about monarch butterflies? But it's a candidate for listing. Did you know that? Its status is imperiled. It directs the city to incorporate the butterfly and its ecological needs into the park management plan, specifically to monitor the species and plant native wildflowers like milkweed. Park uses such as walking trails and mowing of trails and fields were not deemed threats. Widespread spraying and intensive mowing, though, of native nectar-bearing wildflowers would be. Now, both the mayor, Stroud, and I signed a compliance findings. Now, that's a really pretty technical document, and that's attachment 3 in my notes here. And the compliance findings is dated December the 20th, 2023. The compliance findings committed the city to address the above mitigation summary, as well as efforts to remove invasive species, maintain riparian buffer zones, maintain water and habitat quality for Mill Branch, species monitoring, and the successful application of required permits from the Arkansas Department of Transportation. In that case, it was the driveway permit that we used for building the north side. So there were specific requirements, and this is just a summary of those. Now, in the city's request for release of funds dated May 14th, 2024, Mayor Stroud certified that the type and degree of environmental effects identified by the environmental review done by me did not require, and this is another good news for us, did not require the preparation and dissemination of the environmental impact statement. If you've ever done an EIS, a full-blown EIS, that is one piece of work, and it takes a year to 2 years at a minimum. So we avoided that. But in order to reach that requirement, all the other stuff that we said we would do, the environmental assessment, environmental review had to be done. Now, I've got some other things about that, but I think you've got my point. I think if we had not put in the things that I've summarized for you about the various species, water quality, habitat, etc., I don't think we could have gotten the HUD grant. I'm just here to tell you. Or it would have taken a lot longer to prepare a document, and it might have required an EIS. We were able to avoid that. That's another good news for the city. Now, Mayor Stroud and I are still not off the hook. Now, I hope you found that in your conversations with whoever, the people you talk to, Mayor. Under federal law, the reevaluation of project is necessary under the following circumstances. The recipient proposes substantial changes in the nature, magnitude, or extent of the project, including new activities not anticipated in the original scope. Further, the environmental review record should be updated, and the responsible entity, and that's me, should confirm whether original findings are still valid. That is still a requirement that I have. If the original findings are no longer valid, a new environmental assessment must be prepared. So that, and I will say that in the request for funding to release funds that Mayor Stroud signed, I had 7 requirements as part of that were required of me as a responsible entity. The mayor had 2, and that was to make sure that I'd done my work properly and that the city and myself and all those involved would adhere to the conditions that we had said we would follow. That is in, and that was signed, as I said, May 14, 2024. There are a number of things here. I won't bore you with that, but the responsible entity, I will say this, is assumed responsibility for and complied with and will continue to comply with the National Environmental Policy Act of 1969 as amended, and the environmental procedures, permit requires, and statutory obligations of the law cited 24 CFR 58.5. So we have continued responsibilities. Regardless of whether or not that we bought the land and paid for it, we still have responsibilities. And so in summary, I think that we need to update the park management plan. We need to incorporate these management recommendations that were in the biological assessments. We need to include the mitigation plans, of which there were a number identified in the environmental review document. And that if it is of service to the council and to the Parks and Recreation Commission, I would volunteer to update the plan. Gratis. To start with the Beaver Watershed Alliance, take the document that the city, March 17th document that says the Park Maintenance and Improvement Plan. It was referenced at the last Parks and Recreation Commission meeting. I didn't know such a document existed until one of the commissioners mentioned it at that meeting. I think there are a lot of good things in this Park Maintenance and Improvement Plan that's dated March 17th. I do have objections with several items of it to focus on spraying on just every page. That is of concern, but we've addressed that already. But if it would be of a service to the council, I would update the plan. I would work with the Parks and Recreation Commission. That, or if you don't want me involved with it, I understand that, then have the Parks and Recreation Commission come back and prepare it and work in the recommendations and take it through the process just like they did the master plan. So you've got a choice there from my perspective, but thank you. Any questions, I'd be glad to answer those.
So I'd like to make a statement. The March 17th document that you keep referring to is a memo between myself and staff with an AI recording. It was heavily focused on Spring because that was the ride as we drove through the park in the ATV that was recorded by a Plod device on AI. I didn't read that before I sent it out. I went ahead and sent it to the park commissioners as well as my staff because I wanted to record that we had gone through and discussed some of those things. AI doesn't get everything exactly right. So just for reference, it's a memo. It is not a maintenance plan. And it was heavily focused on Spring because they had questions about what future things were going to be occurring in the park. So let's just make some clarity there that that is not a maintenance plan that was ever devised for us to follow. That is a memo that was a recording. The other thing I want to just make a statement about is that we actually called HUD today to clarify that anything that we've done, whether or not it would violate this assessment that Ken had prepared. And we spoke to a gentleman there. The gentleman's name was Pedro. I don't want to butcher his last name. Ardepel Kinberg.
Right.
So, so he said that nothing that we have done would violate anything that's in our HUD agreement on the environmental review. So just for clarity, the city has not done something that's put us at legal jeopardy because we've done something wrong against what was recommended in the environmental review. I just want to let you guys know. And that conversation was recorded. So if you want to listen to it, you can. And I have also reached out to, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services, as well as Department of Agriculture in the state. I've also reached out to our forestry division to ask for him to come do a walkthrough so we could look at what types of native trees are the best for planting and where we could plant those for help mitigate soil erosion. So, yeah, I think that you are right, Ken, that me going through this with a fine-tooth comb, I can see things differently now. And I know the agencies better because I've spoken with them. So I do plan on working more with them in the future. I'm not opposed to us redoing the comprehensive management plan. That took significant time and money. There was a grant that was given to the Beaver Watershed Alliance through the Walton Family Foundation to prepare that. I don't know if that grant's available. This would come at a significant cost to the city if we decided to redo that plan today. I do think it needs to be redone at some point. I'm not opposed to that, but let's look at how we would fund that as well. So, other comments you guys have, council?
So Ken, is your assertion that something illegal or untoward has been done to date?
No, I would not say that. I'm saying, if you remember my comments, is that we need to update our management plan. Remember my main point here, okay? The,
Question stands. No question.
Yeah. I think if we'd had this spring and mowing park maintenance improvement plan dated March 17, which is referenced at the Parks and Recreation Commission meeting. I said this to the council at special meeting last week, that had this document been enforced or had it been something to be used, I could not have completed. It would have taken longer, or our environmental review would have been deemed inadequate. I could not have worked these recommendations into the environmental review due to all the federal statutes, executive orders, and environmental factors that I was having to analyze for this project. I think that's the point that I was trying to make then, and that I'm trying to make now, Birch.
Understand. And the mayor said that's not a memo, that's not a maintenance plan, that is a memo to staff.
Right. I'm glad for the clarification.
And it's no different than the memo I have from Danielle and I's meeting today.
Yeah.
And you're welcome to look at it. I haven't reviewed it for accuracy either, but summarizes the series of park management meetings held prior to the 5/13/2025, focusing on vegetation management, invasive species control, erosion prevention, maintenance responsibilities, and community engagement. The notes detail strategies for native planting, targeted herbicide use, and trail maintenance, as well as challenges related to staffing, public perception, and environmental regulations. Action items are consolidated at the end, providing clear roadmap for ongoing and future tasks. This is a memo. This is so that when we walk through, I don't forget things. So when I go back and I can address some of these things, this is not a document that I would look to say, this is how we're managing the plot, or even that it's 100% accurate. It's an AI recording. It helps me because it helps me to go back and reference these things. I thought it would help the parks commissioners and my staff to be able to reference it as well. That's all it was meant for. It is not a maintenance plan. It was not a modification to the maintenance plan. We have always followed the comprehensive maintenance plan that was prepared and adopted in 2022. That's where I look for my guidance on how to direct our staff. So
I would like to remind the council and the mayor that for myself, this started on April 14th as I was coming out of the park with Mary and our dog, and I was approached by state plant board officials about area spraying along the creek and about the removal of streamside vegetation. I told him, remember what I shared with you. I didn't know anything about that. I noticed it. I was wondering what was happening. And I said, and this is also in my memo to you, the council last week, and to Parks and Recreation Commission the week before, that we did not know, but if it's anyone, it was likely the city of Goshen. And so I'm still honestly confused about the role of the Parks and Recreation Commission. I mean, one thing, they are to develop a master plan and bring it to you. You would think park management plan would start with them. And so it was my thought that, and if it's a mistake, it was an honest mistake. I thought the appropriate thing was to go to the Parks and Recreation Commission with my concern. I always put my thoughts on paper, took it to them, and then I started getting pushback that it wasn't Parks and Recreation Commission's role or responsibility. It belonged to someone else in the city. Well, from my experience serving as chair of the Parks and Recreation Commission, we did the mowing contract and management plans. It started there, and I thought that was a point of contact. Honest to God, I did. And that's why I was there. So it wasn't until I got actually pushback that no, the Parks and Recreation Commission was not. I go back to, I still wonder what the heck Ordinance 175 means, or if this isn't the role of the Parks and Recreation Commission to update, then I wonder what the role what their actual role is. So, look, Mayor, I just didn't have a chance to get back to you when you made a point earlier. I brought this up at the Parks and Recreation Commission meeting. Next thing, we have a special council meeting, and I tried to be as positive as I could based on what I observed. And so here we are. I think I want to say this again. We've made progress in the last 2 weeks. I'm glad to hear that. I appreciate the commitment that you're making of working with the Beaver Watershed Alliance and attending their workshops. I think that's a good thing to do. And I'm hoping we can update. I think we do need to go ahead and incorporate some of these things. It may be some addendum to the management plan, but I think we need to incorporate the things I've discussed here tonight. So if there are not any other questions.
One last question, Ken, and when you had that encounter with the plant board,
yes,
I remember that they told you that was an anonymous complaint. That's how they.
That's exactly what they said. We asked, well, who called in a complaint or who made a complaint? Oh, we can't tell you. It's anonymous. I said, okay, fair enough. There are a lot of people out here that walk their dogs. I mean, we're out there. There must have been a half a dozen cars and people out there with their dogs. So, I figured if they're spraying out there, someone saw it. They were worried about their family or worried about their dog or wondered what was going on and made a complaint. So I just know Mary and I didn't do it.
I think Ken's an expert. We've got an expert willing to volunteer behind.
And I think we're still waiting on a report, aren't we, from the state plant board?
So that I've contacted the state plant board. They said that they had 30 days to make any determination on their findings.
Okay.
So I've also looked at the past 2 years of state plant board meetings and their notes and summaries of those meetings. And there's never been any kind of citation of a fine at this level for this type of a complaint. So
Yeah,
I was told by Brian, was the gentleman that did the assessment, that he would think that we might get a warning letter from the state plant board to the city for using without a license, provider there at the time. They also told me that most of the leaf curl that was on the closer to the water's edge was likely from drift because of the spraying of the poison hemlock across that field. Partly because when you spray, if you spray anytime earlier than around noon, sometimes you'll get a temperature rise and it'll end up causing some of that to vaporize. So the plants had curl, but they didn't have any dead leaves. And so he felt like there was not enough chemical on those to have been sprayed directly. So that was his assessment that he spoke with me about. Now, there may be some plants that they've sprayed with glyphosate over there that may have more chemical on them. But as far as the spraying of the poison hemlock, that was his assessment.
So.
Yeah, one of the things that the mayor actually did direct me to kind of look at if we were to implement something, a lot of the options and the visions of a plan like that, we would have to expand staff. Right now, we are currently understaffed and could not do a third of what the recommendations are. We would actually have to expand staff, which would require more allocation for the parties. Right now, it is not enough to cover it.
Ken, you're willing to volunteer your time, right? That's what you're asking.
I am.
I don't think it's gonna be just Ken taking care of 100 and some odd acres. There's volunteers not gonna cover that.
I think Colton's referring to.
Sure, I mean, that's your.
It's yeah, big.
Yeah, sure. But that is a concern. It would require us expanding staff.
Well, the other thing is that the comprehensive management plan would be something that would not just include Ken, it would take multiple agencies. I don't know that that's something that could be accomplished for free. I mean, I know that Ken's willing to volunteer time to do, the work, but I think at the same time, we also need to incorporate all of those things with the other agencies. So,
Yeah, look, Russ, Mayor, what I'm primarily interested in is us moving forward on this as positive as we can. I think we all want that. And that was the basis of the offer. If it helps to move forward, then I'm here to do it, to help work with the Parks and Recreation Commission. If you've got another way that allows us to move forward, that includes the things I've identified here. You're telling me that the March 17th was just a memo to yourself, basically. Okay. But there's some good ideas there, some good work in there that we want to include. So, whoever needs to incorporate that. Okay.
I agree. And Ken is correct about some things too. With the comprehensive maintenance plan, if you look at it closely, the park commissioners don't do any of the things, and they never have, of the things that were included in that comprehensive maintenance plan. I have only followed the city's instructions of what we're supposed to do, but there's a whole section about what the park commissioners were supposed to be doing and how they were supposed to be monitoring. That's never been done. So just for clarity, it would be nice to update maybe both of them if we're going to do it. And I have no problem having the Parks Commission work on an updated comprehensive maintenance plan as well and bringing that to the council for their approval and, before we get anything else done. I have no concerns about that at all. I just have to caution you to recognize we have 2 employees that are maintaining the park. Outside of that, it's all volunteer time. And I've spent plenty of volunteer time trying to help. Not trying to destroy habitat, trying to help. I know that Mike Nimmo has done the same thing, cleanup around the spring house, amazing. You couldn't even see it before. Now you can actually go down there and people go down there and enjoy it. I've seen lots of kids down there. So good things are happening. And I think we can continue that forward momentum. So any other?
On a side note out of this, I guess I'd just like to hear from Brian as to, some of this came about because of AI documented that was created. And that is a document, any document that you create in a city is foilable.
Sure.
And so I guess my concern, this kind of addressing, concerns about AI generated documents being taken at their word, because that's the only word we have is what is on that document. And there's no disclosure as to this is an AI generated document. This has not been verified. There's nothing on that document. So just from a city protection standpoint, you may want to consider adding something to those documents that you are creating that, either it hasn't been reviewed or it was generated by AI or something like that, just to, again, full disclosure.
You are correct. It's been mentioned at the municipal league conference a couple of times now about AI documented, AI documents that are generated for accuracy, making sure that they are accurate before disseminating. I will learn from this lesson, not disseminate anything that is a personal recording without going through it with a fine tooth comb and making sure that it's correct. So
is it the comprehensive management plan that you think that we need to update? Am I getting that right, or is it a different document?
I think the comprehensive management plan by Beaver Watershed Alliance is still a good, valid, sound document for the information that it contains. It's well written, well done. What I'm saying is that the environmental review, though, revealed that we needed to add additional management needs to our park management plan. There were some mitigation measures that we need to add. There are the issues like streamside management zones factor very much throughout the Beaver Watershed Alliance. We need to probably be a little more certain about what we're going to allow and not allow in there. Do we allow spot spraying? Do we allow hand removal of invasives? So we've got quite a few details, Colton, that need to be added that came out of the environmental review that was done.
And you're asking us.
Yes.
Right. So you want to update this?
Well, I'm volunteered to do that in order for us, as I said, for us to move forward. I don't think I have to rewrite the actual Beaver Watershed Alliance plan, but I think I need to add the additional elements that came out of the environmental review.
Just for clarification, you're not suggesting to redo the comprehensive management plan yourself.
I'm not.
And you're not.
Well, I would do it myself, yes.
So
yes, I would.
You would take on the project of doing a comprehensive management plan that took several agencies and a huge grant to get done. You do that yourself. I'm a little concerned about bias. I mean, I'll just be honest. I'm a little concerned about bias.
I can understand from your perspective.
Yes. And reading some of the stuff in the environmental review that was not accurate. There's some inaccuracies that I didn't find till I reread it. So I can point those out with you at another time, but there are a few.
I would appreciate that.
Okay.
Because if there's serious inadequacies, then we got a problem, a bigger problem. So yeah. I do have your signature on the document, so you did my signature as well. So
I would really like to see you do this. That's just my opinion.
I think the only use our Parks and Recreation Board is well.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I have that concern. That's why I was trying to say that it would be something done with and through the Parks and Recreation Commission. It would be something volunteer to do, but also getting an alternative, remember, as well. But yes, I'm holding to your point.
So we've got an expert that's asked to volunteer to plan. Maybe people taking up on it.
To Burgess' point, I think you all have structured this as the Parks Commission, their role is to do just that and then advise you all. And I think it would be appropriate for him to participate in any meetings and add input. They can take whatever they want as they do that. But I think the way y'all set up that structure, it's got to come from the Parks Commission.
We have somebody else with public
Yeah,
comment.
I just have some questions if you
You
don't
just
mind.
state your name for the recorder treasurer.
Kyle. So the trees that are cleared or are planned to be cleared, those are standing trees or fallen trees?
We have no plans to clear any trees right now.
Well,
So-
that were done at the volunteer event.
The only trees that were removed at the volunteer event were deadfall, which were dead trees that were already on the friendly. The only other trees that were removed were outside of the riparian zone. So
the deadfall was on the ground,
yes,
like snags and trees.
well, there was tons of trees that were down.
Okay. In the mode, existing mode areas or in the riparian areas?
I'm not understanding what you mean.
So
existing mode areas.
the deadfall that was cleared was from the previously prior this year unmowed riparian areas, or they were in the mowed areas. Both. Okay. I guess my question is trying to understand how that habitat in those riparian areas that do help with erosion control in some circumstances, not always, and it's nuanced, and I recognize that, but they do help with habitat, they do help with sediment retention. How in those unused areas, not mowed, how do those pose a safety risk?
So only those dead trees that are in an area where they could fall on people. Those are the only dead trees that we want to remove. So any of those that could fall on someone potentially under them, those are the ones that we have concerns of a public safety hazard.
So
There's a
that would be
huge sycamore tree that's right next to a trail there by the old chicken house pad. It's cracked halfway up from wind. It's dead. And if it falls, it has the potential to fall right on someone on the trail. I think that one needs to be removed before something bad happens. There's two or three other dead sycamore trees over on the north entrance, on the north side. Danielle and I took some pictures today of those trees because they have had dead limbs fall. And some of them have fallen, I think, close to Mike, right, when you were down there? So that for me is a public safety concern. Other than that, we don't plan on removing dead trees in the park. Those dead trees that are out where people aren't traversing, we think those are important for habitat. There's no reason to remove those. So
and the comprehensive management plan allows for tree removal for safety.
It does,
right?
for safety.
The safety risk.
Yep.
So I
But
guess
the concern is the comprehensive management plan does, but part of the way that it's written in our environmental review is that we shouldn't remove deadfall or dead trees at all.
Yeah.
Except for just in the months of October through March. And my summation is you can't always remove them in those months, and that you may have to remove those at a time where it's appropriate based on whether there could be human harm. So I understand why it's written that way in the environmental review, but I do feel like we need to develop a comprehensive management plan that references that if it's a public hazard or safety hazard, that it still could be removed. But those are the only ones that should be removed.
I understand. I think if we're going to amend that, I would ensure that, the language states that the ideal situation would be that those are evaluated and removed
Absolutely.
during those time periods. In terms of the deadfall that was removed, those were standing deadfalls or snags or laying on the ground. I guess I was a little bit confused because you said they were deadfall, but then you said they were standing. So I'm just trying to understand what was removed.
The only standing vegetation that was removed was outside of that. So outside of that 25 foot, well, outside of the buffer zone.
Right. So
Now,
what
there
was
something that
removed from the
in
riparian?
riparian zone that's outside the 25 foot buffer. But there wasn't much as far as live vegetation at all that was removed. Only
So
because
the deadfall then, that was removed from the riparian zone.
that was removed from the 25. All of the deadfall that was in the riparian zone, we tried to remove.
Why?
Some of it's, sorry?
Why?
Why did we try to remove the deadfall?
Yeah, I guess that's my question.
Well, there's dead limbs and dead logs laying on the ground that we're trying to mow around. So that,
if we're not mowing the riparian area, then why are we mowing?
we are mowing in that area that's along. So there's two things. There's a huge riparian zone, right?
Yep.
And then there's the buffer. Please let me speak. There's a buffer zone as well that we've identified as 25 feet by council that they wanted to not go any closer to the creek for mowing.
Mhm.
So there was no statement of that we weren't going to mow in the riparian zone. That is something that we are doing, is mowing in that riparian zone that comes down from that south bluff that comes around to the creek. Does that answer your question?
I guess as someone that was a member of the public at the last meeting, that does contradict how I understand both the comprehensive management plan and what was said. That's to be maintained as an unmanaged area, except for what is deemed to be a public safety risk.
So
to-
we've
to
managed that
mow-
area the whole time with the trail through. So
Right.
there's never been a time we
The
didn't have a
existing
trail.
roads, right?
But we didn't.
When we knew areas.
The whole area of that lower field to the storybook tree, that whole area is now becoming mowed so that we can use that for our disc golf. So
Along the creek.
well, it's
Down to-
between the creek and the bluff. Yes.
So between the creek and the existing boat trail.
No, between the so
Creek on the bluff.
the creek and the bluff. So the 25-foot barrier from the creek over to the bluff will remain mowed. Does that help?
So the riparian area.
So it is part of the riparian area. Yes.
So the trees that were removed were from what was previously not mowed. Is that, am I understanding that correctly? And we're now mowing that?
So we're now mowing all the way from where you turn the corner
Okay.
to go to the storybook tree after you go past the crossing, the stream crossing.
Yep.
All the way to the storybook tree. And so in that area, there was deadfall and there were a few limbs that were trimmed, which pruning is part of the plan. It's part of our maintenance plan, that were removed. Everything else was stuff that was on the ground or dead vegetation that was dead. Some of it was standing dead. Some of it was stuff that was just laying on the ground. Does that help answer your question?
Not entirely, but I'll get down there just to understand.
Yeah, but take a look.
Yeah.
So
And I've got some photos, I can show you what they did.
Okay.
They
Yeah.
just a quick time that they were down there before I told them to get out of the creek.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
They saw the thing.
Okay, and then was there like a plant survey that was done before that it was mowed that was deemed not to be natives done? Was that? I'm just curious.
I don't understand your question.
But the areas that you're now mowing that were called up not to be mowed, that the state was that there were not native plants there. And we're gonna mow it and then establish native plants was there. Like some form of survey done just to understand what plants were there. No, okay. That's all. I'm just curious. Thank you.
All right. That was a long public comment, so I'm going to start the timer. So, just state your name, and then I will start the timer after you state your name.
Cheryl Leno. I just want to make a comment about Colton. I'm sorry, but my husband's probably one of the most honest people that you will ever meet. And for Colton to say that he's done something or said something to my husband, and my husband says, no, he didn't, I can guarantee you he did not.
There's a photo of him in the creek.
A photo
All
doesn't
of the
tell me anything.
down.
You did not talk to him. You did not approach him and talk to him.
Oh, I
And I take offense to that.
This is coming from Cheryl. This loss is not appropriate to argue with citizens in the community.
How much longer are we gonna have to do this?
So we're gonna limit it to 1 minute. You can have 1 minute to speak. That's what's in our ordinance. That's what Brian had looked up under ordinance 225. So for 1 minute, you get to speak. State your name and I'll start the timer.
Mary Smith. This park can provide recreation, education, environmental services. We can do it all. But why I acted the way I did and asked for a hearing and we wrote this stuff up is I talked to you at an Arbor Board meeting and said, why are you clearing to the creek? That is a riparian zone. And you said to me, there's no law against it. Now, it was my understanding that we were under some promises via HUD for the money. I felt like that was a legally questionable thing to do to abandon it. Now, I have pictures of what it looked like when they cleared, and when I found this, whether it's AI or FOIA or whatever, when it says spray over and over and over, spray all the way down to the fence row.
1 minute is up. Thank you, Mary. No ordinance, John. All right. Any other public comment before we move on to the next item on the agenda? All right, the next item on the agenda is the Mill Branch Park Comprehensive Management Plan, which I think Danielle pointed out the items that I was really wanting to review. It's in your packets for you guys to look at. It's a 62-page document that I would recommend all council members read, thoroughly go through and understand this document. The comprehensive maintenance plan is also a part of this that was adopted by you guys in 2022. I encourage you to read and understand and look at that as well. I am completely open to, if you want changes made to that, you let the Parks Commission know what changes you would like and let the Park Commission work on that and bring those changes back to you. I will follow the changes that they recommend that you guys approve. That's the best I can say is what we will try to do. I will not vary from that. You guys have full control of that. Talk to the Parks Commission about how they want to revise based on what recommendations you have, and we can bring that back to the council. Okay. Any other questions about it? Okay. Any public comment about that? Please come to the podium and state your name and I'll start the timer.
Russell, this is Ken Smith, Mayor. I'm sorry, apologize for that. Mayor, are we talking about the March 17th document? Or are we talking about the Beaver Watershed Alliance document?
The March 17th document is a memo. Let's refer to it as a memo as what it is. Okay. So mistakenly, maybe, that it went out and I didn't review it.
My question to you, since I only have a minute or so. It's the Beaver Watershed Alliance document.
Correct.
Okay.
And the comprehensive maintenance plan that was developed by Chuck Jacobus when he was on the Parks Commission. Those are the two documents that we are referring to.
You do know that several people wrote the comprehensive master plan, right?
This is the comprehensive maintenance plan.
Maintenance plan.
Not the comprehensive master plan.
Okay.
The master plan is a separate document.
All right, that's what I'm confused about. Then there is a maintenance plan.
A comprehensive maintenance plan that was developed in 2022 and adopted by this council before I was elected.
Okay. All right, that's what you're wanting review on.
Time, yes.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any other public comment before we move on to the next item? Okay, so next item on the agenda is the street fund amendment. Have you guys had a chance to look at the changes on the street fund budget?
Yeah.
So this is directly in respect to the needing to do the culverts. So there's no way for us to keep those in separate line items And so
Robin, baseball.
it is, I mean, it's essentially all coming out of the same budget, but we have to reallocate it via the budget. No, because we're gonna need other for gravel and maintenance, so. Yeah. So I wanted to make sure we had at least another 15,000, and now we have 20, so that's good. Because it'll take that to finish out the year. And the reason we left 20,000 in for road resurfacing is because we have to, we had a $14,000 estimate from last year on putting an asphalt apron on the park road. And so we will continue to move forward with that once Crossland gets out of there. So. South Park entrance.
That's what I got.
Yeah. And we left 20,000 because we thought it might go up from last year's $14,000 estimate. So that's why that's in there.
Budget's a working document, budget's been approved.
Yep.
All right.
So we just need approval to change the categories in this from you guys. And I think that can just be done by a vote. Is that correct?
For now, that's fine, yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the moving funds from the
Reallocate.
research.
A second.
Okay. So I have a motion and a second. Any public comment before we vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so carried. Move on to the next item on the agenda, the CDs. So, the certificate of deposit update is that we did withdraw 2 CDs, and that came out to a total of $415,437.22. That was moved to the general fund to be able to fund the construction of the building of the new shop. We did roll over the 2 CDs with $163,782.18. Both of those did roll over at 4.25% interest. So that leaves us with a total currently of $651,413.04 in CDs. So the next ones to mature will mature in October 7th, 2025. And at that time, we can decide on what to do with those. So, yeah, where we're at. I think that's it. Is there anything else?
You closed 3 CDs.
There were 3 that were closed
And 2
that were rolled over. That's correct. And the 3 that were closed, that was the allocated amount that came out was the 437.22.
On the ones that rolled over because they still say 2024 on the dates for.
No, I have maturity dates of 2026.
Well, you've got a different sheet than we do.
Yeah,
Okay.
the sheet that we had in our.
The sheet that's in the package was not that one.
They're right there. You got it.
Sorry, it's been updated since then. So the report I have is 2026.
That's
Yeah, sorry. Apologize. I didn't know that it was different. Yeah, this was printed out for me. I didn't pull it up from the packet. So, okay. I think that brings us to the end.
You're at public
Yep.
reports and comments.
So, yep, at the end. So reports, comments, you guys on the council, you guys go first. Any comments or anything you guys want to talk about?
Is there any way to get our more recent ordinance updates for the lighting and the signage out to the public for them to review a little bit better or have it published somewhere in potential? Because, I mean, signs are a big change to the city, and I think that we should have a better communication of that to the citizens so they can have some response time.
No, Brian, what?
Yeah,
I recommend, I don't know.
You could publish them somewhere, just that they're proposed,
Proposed.
a draft ordinance.
I mean, just be cautious because I mean, quite honestly, if we publish that in the paper, that entire ordinance.
Saying
it's gonna cost us- Okay.
Put it on, send it up the shared list or put it on the website.
I would watermark it.
Identify it as not passed yet,
So
but I would just like to see that because that is a huge change, and if suddenly there are 10-foot signs showing up and people are gonna be more upset that we didn't let them know that that's a potential in the future, then, you know, it's not, again, it's, good communication to the public whenever we're making that kind of a drastic.
Yeah, we could do that. You know, you could send it out with a watermark on it.
Cause like that, you could send a letter out to the share list, telling them that they are now on the, not everybody has a.
Well.
Not everybody has a.
Well, I mean, we could probably put it somewhere on our website too.
That's what I'm saying.
I could see if we could put it on the website, and then that way people could at least go there.
Because we're gonna have potentially, you know, people are gonna be upset about it regardless of what ends up getting passed, but they're gonna be really upset if they don't know about it in time to be able to make comments.
Is that something that we can post in the 5 places?
Sure. Yeah, we could post it there.
Even though it's not official?
Yeah, people don't look there as much, but I think we can at least post it there. People can look. The problem is that they're not gonna be able to. They may not be able to, if it's behind the view box, they're not going to be able to look at it.
Right, but like at the post office and at the 2 gas stations, those bulletin boards?
I would just do a document that says, you know, changes to, proposed changes to, and then say, see city website. And we put a tab on our city website for it. I think that'd be a better way to do it.
Well, that's what I was saying, and then you can go to, they can go to the website and read it.
Yeah. So I'll send Lacey an email, put it up.
We can print copies and have them at the city hall as well, so if people don't have access to a computer, they can call city hall, we can just provide them a copy if that works too.
Okay.
I just feel like there are some pretty significant changes and we need to let the public hear about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't disagree. All right. Any other comments by council?
Just a comment. I don't know if we've talked about this before, but just hiring practices. I think that we might need to review those to make sure that if we're kind of. I think about myself as a citizen. If I saw the mayor hire 5 of his close friends, or pay them in some way, I don't think that's appropriate. I think that we should probably look at hiring practices and put some restrictions on that, unfortunately. Just my comment. I think we've had 2 people who are very close friends getting paid as contractors, and then 3 close friends I think are now appointed in some capacity at the city. Just very concerned about the optics of benefiting friends in this position.
I'm going to address that because I think that's probably more directed toward me right now.
Some of it's you. Jerry is one.
But let me put it.
Jerry is.
I want to clarify that. I am not an employee. For one, I'm still volunteering. I'm not being paid.
Well, you're a volunteer employee.
Exactly. Well, but at the same time, I am not being paid. I am not in position of making any decisions whatsoever.
Yeah, and Jerry, you're just one, but he did appoint you as chief of staff, and you're living in his garage. I don't think that's appropriate.
At the same time, again, I pay for where I live. Okay, you don't know any of that.
No. Again, very close friends pattern. It's you, individual is cleaning his house.
I would hope to think that maybe my expertise has something to do with it.
From your financial point, I love it.
Yeah.
Your financial point, love it. Appreciate the work you've done on finance, but appointing you as chief of staff, I do not think that was an appropriate decision. And I do not think that the appointment of 2 others that are close friends are appropriate either. I think that us moving forward, whether it's Russell or another person, I think
so you want to take on the entire industry of most administrations that they don't hire people that they are.
Let me address this too. So
I just want to make a comment as council before you address it, since it's addressed to you.
Yeah.
I used to work for the city, and anytime there's a new administration, they can bring in who they want. As long as they have the core qualifications, that's just how it works. I mean, that's municipality, that's private industry, that's public industry. you're qualified to do the job. I can be your best friend. You can't have nepotism. You can't have your spouse working for you or your brother, but that's America.
And I just want to clarify a couple of points that you're trying to make. Yes, my housekeeper of 13 years, when I was looking for someone part-time to work at the city, her daughter was available. She applied and had qualifications that I was surprised made her qualified to do the job, and she's been exceptional. She's been an exceptional employee. As far as her mother goes, she does clean this community building, and she does an excellent job. If she didn't, she wouldn't be working for me, period, or the city. And I would say that by far, her ability to clean and keep our city hall and our community building clean, I would venture you're never going to find somebody to do it at the cost that it costs the city to do that job right now.
Is that who you're referring to?
There's 5 individuals, a cousin, Jerry.
Yes, Michael Stroud is my cousin, and he's done electrical work as contract labor. And if you can find someone to do it cheaper, bring them to me. Because
I've used it
I
personally, and
can't.
he does do excellent
I'm
work.
sure he does
What's
a
the
great
difference?
job.
He's a qualified.
He is.
It's the optics. I wouldn't, as a citizen, want the
Optics?
I would want the administration to be hiring all of their close friends. And what happens when he leaves? We can't go through that again, where we just turn over and everybody doesn't know what they're doing. You weren't here for that. We had
Every administration has the option to hire who they want. I assume that if there's a new mayor in, and if I don't particularly agree with the philosophy or particularly want to work for that mayor, then I resign. That's what most people do in any administration turnover. Am I not correct?
But your opinion is biased right now, Jerry.
I don't
With
think-
all due respect, there's a lot of biased opinions. And I don't think that our community knows that this is happening, or they wouldn't stand for it.
I think the bias you may have is that when you work in an administration, you support the policies of that administration. You don't work against them, because that's the way the system works. So if the bias because I support the policies of the administration, I'm afraid to tell you that's the way it works.
And I'm very open to anybody challenging any contract I've made with anybody. If they want to say that they can find someone that'll do the job better and cheaper, bring them to me. I'm not opposed to that. But I work with the resources and the people and the skills that I feel like are appropriate to use. So if you don't like that, then, bring me another option. So. Any other comment by council? Any other public comment before we?
Only other thing I had was that I was just wanting to highlight what Bert asked earlier, and I thought that was a very good point. Have there been any wrongdoing or any damages occurred because of this controversy over the park issue? I just wanted to make sure, I was glad to see that actually brought out. So thank you.
Can I have another minute?
Yeah, you can have another minute at the podium, yes. Come on up and just go ahead and state your name again. Oh, 2 minutes, because it's public comment time.
Very simple. My concern of what had happened when you're mowing straight to the creek. We have staff, and I don't expect staff to know all the native plants they cut, the plums, the spice bush. I can show you where they're gone, and when they're widening to the edge of the creek and to the bluff, they're taking out a lot of the big pollinator shrubs like spice bush. The frostweed is a big pollinator plant for monarchs. I don't know which ironweed you're talking about, but frostweed, which has a little spine coming up, it's very hardy. That's a huge pollinator plant for monarchs in the fall. I think just because we want everything to be tidy, we will take out all of that standing wood on the ground. Is where fireflies live. They need that to develop their larvae and their young and insects. They're taking out all the bird habitat, all the butterfly habitat, all the firefly habitat. And yes, the riparian zone part of the park, that minimum of 15 feet, shouldn't be mowed, shouldn't be sprayed. You need to take it out manually. I think they'll find that when they go to the training. But I do think there has been damage. And when they expanded it going up and they mowed down baby bur oaks that I planted 2 or 3 years ago. I can type you and show you the ones that are left standing that may be this tall from years when I hand planted, and Ken and I hand planted 30, 40, 50 of them. But a lot of them are gone because staff don't know, they haven't been trained, they don't know what to keep and what to lose. And that's my concern, because that's one of the things people go to the park for. It's not just to walk, but to bird and see things and teach their kids about them and get them in the stream. And I think we can provide 3 landscape access points to get the public in and leave everything else alone for 15 feet. And it would be easier and cheaper on staff time and equipment.
Thank you, Mary. Any other public comment before we adjourn? All right, we entertain a motion to adjourn. All right. So a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor? Thank you. Colton seconded.
The fans on the right are backwards, or going in reverse.
You're right, they are.
These are correct. So just heads up.
There's a setting on the remote. That's probably why.
Whoever's sitting over here is a lot warmer than sitting over here.
No, good catch.
Keep getting hotter under this fan.
Well,
I did turn the temperature down.
I've been warm all night, and I'm just sitting here looking at that, and then I caught that.
I just want to turn it back up.
It hasn't been running much.
I know. Because I was hot earlier.
I gotta tell you, the front row, I don't know how the people on the stage managed. In the row at graduation, me and my daughter graduated.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was on the front row just watching everybody walking past. Yeah. It's so hot.
You have a problem with Marjorie being the court treasurer and John being a council member? You